The Unholy Masquerade. In the heart of a city draped in mystery and shadow, a young woman named Sarah arrived, her life forever poised on the precipice of the unknown. She had ventured into this new world, a stranger to its secrets, craving excitement and intrigue. Her longing led her to the enigmatic Count Vladimir, a man who, at first glance, seemed to be the embodiment of charisma and charm. One moonless night, a cryptic invitation to a masquerade ball arrived at her door. The allure of the masquerade beckoned her, promising a night of wonder and enchantment. Sarah couldn't resist the temptation. Draped in a gown of midnight black, her mask concealed her identity as she entered the grand mansion. The ballroom was a sight to behold, bathed in the ethereal glow of 1,000 candles. Masked figures swirled in a graceful dance, their laughter tinkling like forbidden melodies. Count Vladimir, adorned in a blood-red tuxedo, spotted Sarah from across the room. He moved towards her, extending a gloved hand. "Mademoiselle, may I have the honor of this dance?" His voice, like velvet, coaxed her into the waltz. Sarah was mesmerized, drawn into a dance that seemed to defy gravity, as though the entire world revolved around the couple. For a moment, she forgot the haunting allure of the night and its potential dangers. As the music swelled, Count Vladimir whispered sweet promises into Sarah's ear. She was seduced by the enigmatic stranger's charm and grace, his allure wrapping around her like a silken shroud. It was easy to lose herself in the heady atmosphere of the masquerade, swept away by the sensual allure of the night. However, as the night wore on, Sarah began to sense that something was amiss. The revelers' masks concealed not just their identities, but also their true nature. There was an insatiable hunger in their eyes, a hunger that could not be explained by mere desire. Their dance, once graceful, turned into a macabre frenzy of lust and bloodlust. The room darkened, and shadows danced upon the walls, revealing the grotesque reality of the guests. They were not human, they were vampires, creatures of the night who had hidden their fangs behind seductive smiles. Count Vladimir's eyes, once warm and inviting, now gleamed with the crimson hunger that defined his kind. It was a revelation that sent chills down Sarah's spine. She knew she had to escape the clutches of these unholy creatures. With all the strength she could muster, she broke free from Count Vladimir's grasp and fled into the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion. The mansion seemed to have no end, its walls filled with the whispers of the damned. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as she stumbled upon an entrance to the catacombs. Desperation led her into the cold, damp underground passages, where the echoes of tormented souls reverberated. As Sarah navigated the eerie catacombs, she could feel their malevolent presence all around her. Her footsteps were matched by the faint scuffling of unseen figures. With each step, her fear grew, and she questioned the wisdom of her choices. But she couldn't go back. She had seen the monsters hidden beneath the masks. In the catacombs, time seemed to stretch endlessly, her sense of reality unraveling. Sarah's eyes widened as she encountered countless coffins and crypts, each bearing the name of a vampire who had hidden their secrets beneath the earth for centuries. The air grew heavier with each step, and the walls of the catacombs closed in on her, as though the very earth sought to consume her. In her darkest hour, when escape seemed impossible, Sarah came upon an ancient, ornate door. A sense of foreboding washed over her, but it was her only hope. She pushed open the heavy door and found herself in a chamber bathed in an eerie, crimson light. Before her stood Count Vladimir, his eyes a dark abyss of hunger and desire. He blocked her only exit, a sinister smile playing upon his lips. The vampire had orchestrated the masquerade, luring Sarah into his web of deception. With no other choice, Sarah confronted the seductive danger she had fallen into. In a desperate bid for survival, she used her wits and a hidden blade concealed beneath her gown. The ensuing struggle was intense, a dance of death in the unholy chamber. As the crimson light flickered and the catacombs echoed with their battle, Sarah managed to land a blow that sent Count Vladimir reeling. With newfound strength, she dashed for the exit, her heart pounding in her chest. Sarah emerged from the catacombs, gasping for air. The dawn was breaking, and the vampire's power was waning. With the first light of day, the monsters that had haunted the masquerade scattered like shadows, returning to their crypts to await another night. Sarah had survived the unholy masquerade, but she was forever changed. The seductive danger of the unknown had nearly claimed her life, leaving her with a haunting memory that would never fade. She vowed to share her story as a warning to those who might be tempted by the allure of the supernatural, for the price of indulgence could be far more treacherous than they ever imagined. As Sarah stepped into the emerging daylight, she knew that the night had left its mark on her, a mark that would serve as a reminder of the unholy masquerade and the seductive danger that lurked in the shadows. Shadows of the past. The town of Blackwood had always existed under a veil of perpetual darkness. Its history was shrouded in mystery, and whispers of the supernatural hung heavy in the air. Detective James Harker knew better than to dismiss these tales as mere folklore. The town's secrets were darker and more twisted than anyone could imagine. Blackwood was plagued by a series of gruesome murders, the likes of which had never been witnessed before. Bodies drained of blood were discovered, their pale faces contorted in agony. The townsfolk lived in fear, staying indoors after sunset, for they believed that creatures of the night roamed the streets. Vampires. Detective Harker was a seasoned investigator, but even he had his doubts about what he was getting into. The task of unraveling these macabre mysteries had fallen upon his shoulders. He delved deep into the history of Blackwood, hoping to unearth any clues that would lead him to the fiend responsible for the murders. As he pored over old documents and interviewed the few remaining elders, he discovered a disturbing legend that had been passed down through the generations. Blackwood had once been home to a powerful vampire covenant. These vampires had forged a sinister pact that granted them immense power, but it came at a cost. The covenant thrived on the blood of the town's inhabitants, exacting a terrible toll. Detective Harker couldn't help but wonder if the covenant had somehow been reawakened. And if so, who among the town's residents had become their bloodthirsty agents? It was during his investigation that Harker crossed paths with Eliza, a mysterious woman who had recently come to Blackwood. She was unlike the others, appearing human, but Harker sensed an otherworldly presence about her. She seemed to hold secrets that could be the key to solving the murders. Eliza was willing to cooperate with the detective, offering information about the town's dark past and the existence of the vampire covenant. She revealed that she was a vampire herself, but not one of the malevolent kind. Eliza had turned her back on her bloodthirsty nature and sought redemption for the sins of her past. Together, Detective Harker and Eliza embarked on a treacherous journey to uncover the sinister secrets of Blackwood. The town was steeped in a pervasive darkness, one that threatened to consume all who dared to challenge it. Their investigation led them to a hidden chamber deep beneath the town, a place of dread and despair. It was there that they discovered the ancient covenant's records, detailing the atrocities committed by the vampires in exchange for their unholy power. The revelation sent shivers down Harker's spine as he realized the magnitude of the evil they faced. Their pursuit of the truth led them to a deadly confrontation with the vampire elders, the last remaining members of the covenant. These ancient vampires had a thirst for power and a thirst for blood. The battle was fierce, with Harker and Eliza fighting for their lives against creatures who had thrived on darkness for centuries. In the midst of the chaos, a revelation came to light that sent shockwaves through their world. Eliza was not just any vampire, she was the descendant of the Covenant's founder. Her bloodline was entwined with the Covenant's dark legacy. The vampire elders believed that Eliza held the key to resurrecting their covenant and restoring their power. They had manipulated the recent murders in an attempt to draw her out, knowing that her sense of duty would lead her to uncover the truth. Eliza's internal struggle was palpable. She had left her past behind, and the prospect of embracing her bloodthirsty heritage haunted her. But she couldn't allow the covenant to be resurrected, and she couldn't let Detective Harker pay the price for her family's sins. With unwavering determination, Eliza made the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that the covenant remained dormant. She sealed the chamber, trapping the vampire elders inside, their power contained, but their thirst unquenched. The battle had taken its toll, and as they emerged from the chamber, Harker and Eliza could feel the weight of the town's dark history finally lifting. Blackwood would no longer be a haven for vampires, and the townsfolk could once again live without fear. As the sun rose over Blackwood, it marked the end of a nightmare and the beginning of a new chapter. Detective Harker and Eliza had confronted the consequences of their actions, and the town would forever be haunted by its shadowy past. In the end, the persistence of darkness had been thwarted, and redemption had prevailed. The story of Blackwood served as a chilling reminder that even in the bleakest of circumstances, redemption was possible, but it often came at a great cost. The shadows of the past could be confronted, and the darkness that once held a town in its thrall could be vanquished, allowing the light to pierce through once more. Crimson moonrise in the heart of an ancient, forgotten city, the moon cast a crimson hue upon the world. The air was heavy with the scent of blood, and secrets whispered through the night. Amongst the shadows, two souls danced a perilous waltz, each bound by a destiny they couldn't escape. Emily, a skilled vampire hunter with raven black hair and striking green eyes, had dedicated her life to ridding the world of the undead. Her family had been hunters for generations, and the weight of their legacy bore down on her shoulders. She had a secret, a deep and forbidden one, that threatened to unravel the very fabric of her existence. Victor, the enigmatic vampire prince with raven black hair and piercing blue eyes, bore the weight of a tragic past. His heart was heavy with the memories of a life lost to darkness, and he longed for redemption. He was fated to be hunted, to pay for the sins of his kind, but destiny had a twisted sense of humor. Emily's mission was clear: eliminate Victor, the vampire prince who had evaded her family's pursuit for centuries. She had been trained her entire life for this moment, the culmination of her family's vendetta. Yet, as the crimson moon bathed the graveyard in an eerie glow, their paths converged in a clandestine meeting. The moonlight spilled over Victor's figure as he emerged from the shadows, his eyes locking onto Emily. "You're quite the hunter," he mused, his voice a hypnotic melody that sent shivers down her spine. "But I sense a secret within you, something that goes beyond your family's vendetta." Emily clenched her crossbow, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and longing. The air between them was charged with an electric tension, a forbidden attraction that defied logic and reason. "Your fate is sealed, vampire," she whispered, her voice laced with determination. "I am here to end your reign of darkness." As they circled each other, the prophecy of a crimson moonrise weighed heavily on their minds. It was a cryptic omen that spoke of forbidden love, a love that could transcend the boundaries of life and death. Both Emily and Victor had heard the whispers, and neither could escape the ominous meaning of the prophecy. The graveyard transformed into a battleground, the clash of wills and desires echoing through the tombstones. Emily's crossbow met Victor's supernatural speed and strength, their dance a perilous blend of life and death. Each move was a testament to their prowess, their unyielding determination to fulfill their respective destiny. But destiny had other plans, plans that defied the very essence of their existence. As the crimson moon hung low in the sky, a realization washed over them like a tidal wave. Their fates were intertwined, a tapestry of love and vengeance that could not be unraveled. It was in the midst of their heated battle that Victor revealed the true nature of the prophecy. "Emily, our destinies are bound by an ancient curse," he confessed, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. "The prophecy speaks of a love that can break the cycle of darkness, a love that can save my soul from eternal damnation." Emily's resolve wavered as she looked into Victor's eyes, the depth of his pain and longing impossible to ignore. The centuries of darkness that weighed upon him were etched in the lines of his face, and the torment in his voice tugged at her heart. "Is such a love even possible, Victor?" she questioned, her voice trembling. "Can a vampire and a hunter find salvation in each other's arms?" Their breaths mingled in the moonlit graveyard, a breathless silence descending upon them. Emily's crossbow dropped to the ground, the weight of her family's vendetta slipping away. She couldn't deny the connection that had formed between them, a connection that transcended their roles as hunter and hunted. With a slow, deliberate movement, Victor approached Emily, his hand reaching out to caress her cheek. "It is a choice we must make, Emily," he murmured, his eyes never leaving hers. "A choice between love and duty, between salvation and damnation. Will you choose me, and the love that can break the cycle of darkness?" Emily's heart ached with the weight of her decision, the enormity of the choice before her. She had been trained to hunt, to eliminate the undead, but now, faced with the possibility of love and redemption, she stood at a crossroads. The crimson moon hung low in the sky, a silent witness to their choice. In that moonlit graveyard, where the boundaries of life and death blurred, Emily made her decision. She stepped closer to Victor, their lips meeting in a passionate, forbidden kiss. The world around them faded into oblivion, and in that moment, love conquered destiny. As their love blossomed in the shadow of the crimson moon, the prophecy's meaning became clear. It was not just a tale of forbidden love but a testament to the power of choice, the choice to break the cycle of darkness and find redemption in the most unexpected places. Their love story, written in the pages of an ancient prophecy, defied the very essence of their existence. In the heart of darkness, beneath the crimson moonrise, Emily and Victor found a love that transcended the boundaries of life and death, a love that would change their destinies and redefine the very nature of their world. The cursed relic. Dr. Amelia Van Helsing had always been drawn to the mysteries of the past. her life a relentless pursuit of knowledge. As a renowned vampire expert, she had dedicated her career to understanding the supernatural. But little did she know that her most harrowing adventure was about to begin. One fateful day, while exploring the depths of an ancient crypt buried beneath the shadowed earth, Amelia uncovered a relic hidden away from the world for centuries. The relic, a dark, ornate box, exuded a sinister aura that sent shivers down her spine. It was a relic that was better left untouched. But Amelia's insatiable curiosity knew no bounds. The moment her fingers brushed the surface of the relic, an ominous force awakened within. The crypt trembled, and a voice, ancient and filled with malice, echoed through the chamber. "You have released me, mortal. You shall be the instrument of my return." Amelia had unwittingly freed Lucius, an ancient vampire who had been imprisoned within the relic for centuries. His thirst for knowledge had led him to tamper with dark forces beyond his control, and in a cruel twist of fate, he had become imprisoned by the very powers he sought to harness. Lucius materialized before Amelia, his presence sending a cold chill through her veins. "You have awakened a curse that will consume the world. But there is a way to stop it," he declared, his eyes gleaming with a cryptic knowledge. Amelia, her heart heavy with dread, knew that she had no choice but to trust the very entity she had released. She was not only a vampire expert but also an archaeologist, and her skills in unraveling the mysteries of the past were now the world's only hope. Lucius revealed the relic's dark history, one that traced back to an ancient vampire cult. The cult had created the relic as a means to harness the powers of the supernatural. But in doing so, they had unleashed a malevolent force that threatened to engulf the world in darkness. Together, Amelia and Lucius embarked on a perilous journey to find the origins of the relic and, hopefully, a way to stop its dark power. The relic's malevolence extended beyond the crypt, casting a shadow that seemed to spread with each passing day. The world was on the brink of a supernatural catastrophe, and time was running out. Their journey took them to forgotten crypts, long-lost tombs, and archives filled with arcane knowledge. As they delved deeper into the dark secrets of the vampire cult, they encountered ancient texts that hinted at a possible solution. The relic, it seemed, had a weakness, a vulnerability that could be exploited. The ultimate confrontation with the relic's malevolent force was an ordeal that would test Amelia and Lucius to their limits. The relic possessed the ability to control the very elements, unleashing a torrent of darkness that threatened to engulf them. It was a battle of knowledge, a battle of wits against an entity that had existed for centuries. As they faced the relic, Amelia and Lucius uncovered its weakness, a hidden sigil that had the power to nullify the relic's dark magic. With their combined knowledge and determination, they managed to activate the sigil, weakening the relic's power. The world shuddered as the malevolent force began to retreat, its dark influence diminishing. In a final act of sacrifice, Lucius used his ancient vampire powers to imprison the relic once more, sealing it away from the world. The crypt trembled as the relic's power was quelled, and a chilling silence fell upon the chamber. Amelia and Lucius emerged from the crypt, the weight of their ordeal etched in their expressions. The world had been saved from the relic's dark power, but the consequences of tampering with the supernatural had left an indelible mark. The relic's curse had been stopped, but the memory of their journey would haunt them forever. As the relic lay imprisoned once more, Amelia realized the power of knowledge and the dangers that lurked in the pursuit of the unknown. She had faced the consequences of her curiosity and had been forced to make choices that would forever alter the course of her life. Lucius, too, had been given a chance at redemption, a chance to atone for the sins of his past. His thirst for knowledge had led him down a dark path, but in the end, he had used that very knowledge to save the world from the relic's curse. In the heart of the crypt, where the relic's malevolent force had once held sway, a sense of closure washed over them. The relic may have been sealed away, but the memory of their journey would forever remind them of the consequences of tampering with the supernatural and the power of knowledge, a power that could save or damn the world. Bloodlines. The Reynolds family had always believed they were ordinary, living their lives free from the shadows of the supernatural. However, their world would soon unravel, revealing a dark heritage they could never have imagined. It all began when they inherited an old, decrepit estate that had been in the family for generations. The estate, nestled amidst a dense, foreboding forest, was as imposing as it was mysterious. For the first time, the family would come to realize the sinister history of their lineage. The Reynolds family comprised of Daniel, The father, a diligent lawyer; Rachel, the mother, an artist with a penchant for the macabre; and their 2 children, Emily and Michael, who were still too young to comprehend the darkness that lurked beneath their family tree. Their journey into the depths of their dark heritage began with the arrival of Dr. Vanessa Thorne, a vampire scholar and an expert in supernatural legacy. Dr. Thorne had been contacted by the Reynolds family after they discovered a hidden compartment in the estate's library containing cryptic journals and documents. These papers hinted at a legacy that traced back to an ancient vampire bloodline. Dr. Thorne's expertise was vital in helping the family unravel the chilling truth about their ancestry. The first encounter with their vampiric ancestors came as the family explored the estate's hidden chambers, guided by Dr. Thorne's expertise. In the attic, they stumbled upon an old portrait of a couple who bore a striking resemblance to Daniel and Rachel. The eerie resemblance was uncanny, as if they were the very ancestors they had only just begun to understand. As they delved deeper into their family history, the truth about the curse's origins began to take shape. Their ancestors had been members of an ancient vampire coven, one that had reveled in the darkness of the supernatural. They had sought immortality and power at a terrible price. The curse had been passed down through the generations, one unsuspecting heir after another inheriting the vampiric bloodline. The coven's thirst for power had driven them to enact dark rituals, and the curse they had summoned was one that could only be broken by confronting their dark legacy. The estate held the key to breaking the curse, but it would require a desperate battle against the malevolent forces that had plagued their family for centuries. Dr. Thorne guided the Reynolds family as they uncovered the hidden rituals and incantations that would be their only hope. As the family gathered in the estate's grand hall, the malevolent presence of their vampiric ancestors began to manifest. The room seemed to grow colder, the shadows deepening as the ancestral spirits closed in. Their eyes gleamed with a hunger that had been sated by generations of innocence. In the final, desperate battle, the family chanted the incantations and performed the rituals they had uncovered. The air crackled with supernatural energy as the ancestors fought back, their spectral forms writhing with malevolence. It was a battle of wills, a battle to break the curse that had tormented their family for centuries. The spirits of the vampiric ancestors wailed in torment as the curse was finally broken, their power dissipating like smoke. The estate shook with the force of their departure, and the malevolent presence that had plagued the family for generations was banished. As the dust settled, the Reynolds family stood in the grand hall, exhausted but victorious. They had confronted their dark legacy, broken the curse, and liberated their family from the vampiric bloodline that had tormented them. Dr. Vanessa Thorne, her mission complete, took her leave, leaving the family with a newfound understanding of the ties that bound them. The experience had brought them closer, solidifying their familial bond in the face of darkness. The estate, once a place of mystery and malevolence, was transformed. The curse had been broken, and the shadows that had haunted its halls were gone. It was now a place of light and hope, a testament to the resilience of family and the strength of love. The Reynolds family had faced their darkest fears and emerged from the ordeal with a newfound appreciation for the ties that bound them. The legacy of their vampiric ancestors would forever be a part of their history, a reminder of the enduring power of family and the strength to confront one's legacy, no matter how dark it may be. The Veil Between Worlds. Alex was a seasoned paranormal investigator who had spent his life exploring the mysteries that lay beyond the veil of our reality. His insatiable curiosity had led him to the darkest corners of the supernatural, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to uncover. It all began with a cryptic journal he had acquired from a dusty antique shop. The journal contained references to a forgotten vampire world, one separated from our reality by an ancient curse. The entries described a veil that existed between the two realms, a fragile boundary that had held the malevolent creatures at bay for centuries. As Alex delved deeper into the journal's pages, he began to understand the implications of what he had discovered. The veil was not just a mystical barrier. It was a portal to an otherworldly kingdom inhabited by vampires who had been trapped by the curse. They hungered for freedom, and the journal spoke of their insidious plans to breach the veil and enter our world. Determined to investigate further, Alex followed the journal's clues, which led him to a crumbling, long-forgotten castle in the heart of an ancient forest. It was there that he would make a discovery that would change the course of his life forever. In the depths of the castle, hidden beneath layers of decay and darkness, he found Lady Seraphina, a vampire who had been trapped between the realms. Her beauty was ethereal, but her eyes held a sorrowful wisdom that spoke of centuries of confinement. She was a prisoner of the curse, unable to fully enter our world or return to her vampire kingdom. Lady Seraphina explained the curse and the malevolent creatures that sought to break free. As she spoke, the air grew heavy with the weight of the supernatural, and Alex felt the tendrils of an ancient, dark power. "Alex," she implored, "you must help me break the curse and seal the veil. The malevolent creatures are growing stronger, and if they breach the boundary, the consequences will be catastrophic for humanity." Alex hesitated, his curiosity pitted against the terrifying knowledge of what lay beyond the veil. The boundary between worlds was fragile, and the malevolent creatures on the other side hungered for freedom. It was a battle of curiosity and consequence, and he could not turn his back on the looming threat. Together, Alex and Lady Seraphina embarked on a desperate journey through the cursed realm, a place where time and space bent to the will of dark forces. The landscape was a nightmarish fusion of the familiar and the surreal, with grotesque creatures lurking in the shadows and an eerie, blood-red moon hanging low in the sky. Their quest led them to an ancient vampire citadel, a foreboding fortress that held the key to breaking the curse. The malevolent creatures, sensing their intrusion, launched relentless attacks, their supernatural abilities pushing Alex and Lady Seraphina to their limits. As they delved deeper into the vampire kingdom, they uncovered the ancient incantations and rituals needed to seal the veil and prevent the malevolent creatures from escaping. The curse had been born of dark magic, and it would take an equally powerful magic to undo it. In a climactic battle that shook the foundations of the vampire kingdom, Alex and Lady Seraphina faced the malevolent creatures. The air crackled with dark energy as they recited the incantations, the boundaries between the worlds growing thin. The malevolent creatures were relentless, their power fueled by centuries of rage and imprisonment. They sought to breach the veil and unleash their malevolence upon humanity. The battle raged on, and Alex and Lady Seraphina fought with every ounce of strength and determination they possessed. In a final, desperate act, they invoked a spell that would seal the veil once and for all. The malevolent creatures screamed in agony as the supernatural energies surged around them, their forms disintegrating into nothingness. The veil between worlds closed, sealing the malevolent creatures in their cursed realm. The vampire kingdom faded into the darkness, its malevolence vanquished. Alex and Lady Seraphina emerged from the cursed realm, the weight of their ordeal etched in their expressions. As they stood at the boundary between worlds, they knew that the curse had been broken and the malevolent creatures were imprisoned once more. The veil held strong, safeguarding humanity from the malevolence that had threatened to breach the boundary. Lady Seraphina, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sadness, took her leave, returning to the vampire kingdom that was now a prison of her own making. She would remain there, guarding the veil and ensuring that the malevolent creatures would never escape. For Alex, the experience had been a chilling reminder of the consequences of curiosity. The veil between our world and the supernatural was fragile, and the cost of tampering with the unknown could be catastrophic. He had faced the malevolent creatures that sought to breach the boundary and had, with the help of Lady Seraphina, sealed the veil, preserving the safety of humanity. The veil between worlds served as a haunting testament to the delicate balance between curiosity and consequence. It was a reminder that the supernatural world held mysteries that were better left undiscovered, and the boundaries between our reality and the malevolent forces of the otherworldly were not to be trifled with. The silent coffin. Clara's life had always been filled with the warmth of sunlight, laughter, and the simple joys of existence. But as fate would have it, her world would soon plunge into darkness and uncertainty. It began with a mysterious ailment, an affliction that seemed to seep the life from her very bones. Her once vibrant spirit began to wither, and a haunting silence descended upon her, for her illness had stolen her voice. Clara's desperate search for a cure led her to a path she could never have imagined. The doctors were baffled, their diagnosis uncertain. The illness had no name, no known cure. Clara's family watched in despair as the light in her eyes dimmed, and her world grew colder and quieter with each passing day. Desperation drove Clara to seek answers beyond the boundaries of conventional medicine. She delved into the world of the supernatural, searching for tales of cures that lay beyond the realm of the living. It was in a dusty tome of legends and myths that she found a name that sent a shiver down her spine: Countess Isolde. The Countess was a reclusive vampire, said to possess the power to cure any ailment. Her abilities were the stuff of legend, whispered in hushed tones among those who believed in the supernatural. Clara knew that her only hope lay with Countess Isolde, but she was well aware of the perilous price that would accompany her salvation. In her quest to find the Countess, Clara's world became a haunting and tragic journey. She traversed dark forests, ventured into eerie crypts, and followed whispers that seemed to lead her deeper into a world of shadows and secrets. The closer she came to her destination, the more the world around her seemed to blur the lines between life and death. Her eerie encounter with Countess Isolde was a moment that would forever haunt her memory. The Countess was a woman of ethereal beauty, her raven black hair cascading like silk, and her eyes as piercing as the night. She exuded an air of mystery and melancholy, as if she had lived for centuries, and the weight of time rested heavily upon her shoulders. Countess Isolde listened as Clara's silent pleas were conveyed through handwritten notes. She examined her with a gaze that seemed to pierce her very soul, as if she could see the depths of Clara's suffering. With a slow, deliberate movement, the Countess extended a hand, and Clara could see the pulse of life that coursed through her veins, even in her undead state. "I can cure you," the Countess whispered, her voice a haunting melody, "but the price of your salvation is steep." Clara nodded, her eyes filled with desperation and a flicker of hope. She would give anything to regain her voice, to live a life free from the torment of her ailment. Countess Isolde revealed the cost of her salvation, a price that sent shivers down Clara's spine. In exchange for the cure, Clara would become bound to the Countess, her life entwined with the immortal vampire. She would become a silent guardian of the Countess, her voice forever silenced, her life marked by a haunting existence. The revelation about the cost of her salvation left Clara torn between two worlds. On one side lay the torment of her ailment, the silence that had stolen her voice, and the impending darkness that threatened to engulf her. On the other side lay the allure of a cure, the promise of a life free from suffering, but at the price of becoming a silent guardian of a reclusive vampire. Clara knew that her choice would come at a heavy cost, but the desperation to be free from her ailment was an overwhelming force. She made the perilous decision to accept Countess Isolde's offer, her heart heavy with the knowledge that her voice would forever be silenced. In a chilling ceremony that seemed to blur the lines between life and death, Clara became bound to the Countess. The transformation was eerie, the world around her shifting and twisting as her voice was stolen, her life forever changed. As the days passed, Clara's ailment slowly lifted, and her strength returned. She could feel the pulse of life coursing through her veins once more. But the cost of her salvation was a heavy burden to bear. She was now a silent guardian of the Countess, her existence a haunting and tragic reminder of the choices made in the face of desperation. In the dark, silent nights, Clara could hear the whispers of her own voice, a voice that had been stolen but never truly silenced. She had become a living ghost, a shadow of her former self, forever bound to the Countess in a world where the line between life and death was thin. The silent coffin served as a chilling reminder of the consequences of desperate choices. It was a tale of a life forever altered, of a voice forever silenced, and the price one was willing to pay to escape the torment of their affliction. The boundaries between life and death were blurred, and Clara's existence became a haunting and tragic testament to the choices made in the face of desperation. The Midnight Express. Jack had always been a man of routine and order. His life was predictable, with schedules and plans to keep him grounded in the world he knew. But on a fateful night, he would find himself on a journey that defied all reason and plunged him into the depths of the supernatural. It was a midnight like any other when Jack found himself standing alone on a desolate train platform, the hushed whispers of the wind the only company he had. The train that awaited him was unlike any he had seen before, a ghostly locomotive that seemed to shimmer with an eerie light. It was the Midnight Express, a fabled train that carried passengers through the supernatural realm. With a sense of trepidation, Jack boarded the Midnight Express, and the moment the doors closed behind him, he knew that there was no turning back. The interior of the train was a surreal and disorienting landscape, with carriages that seemed to stretch into infinity, each one a world of its own. The passengers on the Midnight Express were a motley crew, each one seemingly plucked from a different time and place. There were the specters of Victorian-era aristocrats, spectral children who played with ghostly toys, and shadowy figures who moved with a sense of purpose that sent shivers down Jack's spine. But it was the conductor who drew Jack's attention, an enigmatic figure with a face that seemed to shift and change like a specter in the mist. The conductor controlled the train's eerie journey, his eyes cold and emotionless as he observed the passengers with a detached gaze. As the train moved through the supernatural realm, the landscape outside the windows was a nightmarish fusion of the familiar and the surreal. Jack saw cities that rose and fell like ancient empires, forests that whispered with the voices of the dead, and skies filled with phantasmal creatures that defied the laws of nature. It soon became clear that the Midnight Express was a world of its own, a never-ending ride through the realms of the supernatural. Time and space twisted and warped, leaving Jack in a perpetual state of disorientation and unease. The other passengers seemed unfazed by the surreal journey, lost in their own worlds of torment and despair. Jack realized that the train was a prison, a place where the unending nature of terror was a torment that had no escape. Jack's unease deepened as he began to uncover the conductor's dark secrets. The malevolent plans that he had for the passengers became clear as he fed on their fear and despair, growing stronger with each passing moment. Desperate to escape the Midnight Express, Jack sought out a group of passengers who had formed a small resistance. They shared stories of the conductor's malevolence and his insidious control over the train. They had tried to escape, but each attempt had ended in failure. Their memories erased as they were forced to relive the journey over and over again. The battle to escape the train's clutches was a harrowing ordeal, with the conductor's spectral presence always looming. Jack and the other passengers faced trials and tribulations that tested their strength and resolve. It was a battle against an unending nightmare, a fight to break free from the supernatural prison that was the Midnight Express. The passengers' attempts to escape the train were met with surreal and disorienting challenges. They faced a shifting labyrinth of carriages, each one a world of its own, with horrors that defied reason and sanity. Time and space twisted and turned, leading them in circles, and the malevolent presence of the conductor was a constant, haunting reminder of their captivity. As the resistance grew stronger, Jack uncovered the key to breaking free from the Midnight Express. It was a dark and perilous ritual, one that involved facing their deepest fears and confronting the malevolence that had imprisoned them. In a climactic battle against the conductor, the passengers enacted the ritual, their strength and determination pushing back the malevolent force that had bound them. The train's eerie journey began to unravel, its supernatural realm disintegrating. With a final surge of will, Jack and the other passengers broke free from the Midnight Express, their bodies and souls thrust back into the world of the living. The train, once a place of torment and despair, disappeared into the darkness, its malevolence banished. As Jack stood on the train platform, his heart heavy with the weight of his ordeal, he knew that the Midnight Express was a chilling testament to the fear of the unknown. It was a reminder that the line between the supernatural and the real world was thin, and the consequences of venturing into the unknown could be catastrophic. The Midnight Express was a place of unending terror, a train that carried passengers through the realms of the supernatural, where time and space twisted and warped, and the malevolent conductor fed on their fear and despair. It was a journey that defied reason and reality, a nightmare that had no escape. Jack's experience on the Midnight Express served as a haunting and surreal reminder of the unending nature of terror and the line between the known and the unknown. The elixir of immortality. Dr. Victor had always been a man of science, a dedicated researcher whose ambition knew no bounds. His obsession with unlocking the secrets of life and death had driven him to the edge of ethical boundaries. But it was a chance encounter that would plunge him into a world of darkness and ambition beyond his wildest dreams. It was on a moonlit night when Victor, deep in the throes of his research, stumbled upon Alina, a woman whose ageless beauty and enigmatic aura piqued his curiosity. She appeared as a phantom in the night, her presence haunting and surreal. Their fateful meeting led to a conversation that would change the course of Victor's life. Alina revealed herself to be a vampire, an immortal being who held the key to eternal life. Her offer was alluring but came with a sinister pact: the elixir of immortality in exchange for an alliance with a darkness beyond reckoning. Victor, consumed by his ambition and the allure of immortality, agreed to Alina's terms. The elixir was a concoction of shadow and blood, a fluid that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. As he drank it, he felt a surge of power and life coursing through his veins, the years melting away from his aging body. But the elixir's dark nature soon revealed itself, and Victor's once ambitious life became an unending existence marked by a thirst for the life force of others. He had become a vampire himself, bound by the sinister pact he had made with Alina. The revelation of the elixir's true nature was a haunting moment for Victor. He had sought eternal life, but the cost of his ambition was far greater than he could have imagined. He was now a creature of the night, feeding on the living to sustain his own existence. As the years turned into centuries, Victor's thirst for life force grew insatiable, and his once ambitious nature had been twisted into an unending hunger for the vitality of others. He watched the world change around him, witnessing the passage of time with a detachment that grew with each passing year. Victor's alliance with Alina was a burden he could not escape, and he realized that the elixir of immortality had come at a price he was unwilling to pay. The consequences of unchecked ambition had left him trapped in an existence of eternal hunger and solitude. The perils of eternal life weighed heavy on Victor's shoulders, a cautionary tale of ambition without boundaries. He had been lured by the allure of immortality, only to find himself trapped in an unending nightmare. The elixir of immortality had promised life without end, but it had come at a cost that he could never have foreseen. As the centuries passed, Victor's unending existence became a torment, a reminder of the consequences of his unchecked ambition. He was a creature of the night, a vampire whose thirst for life force had turned him into a predator of the living. The elixir of immortality had given him eternal life, but it had also stripped away his humanity, leaving him a shadow of his former self. The elixir of immortality served as a chilling reminder of the perils of eternal life and the consequences of ambition without boundaries. Victor's ambition had driven him to make a sinister pact with a vampire, a choice that had led him into an existence of eternal hunger and solitude. It was a cautionary tale of the true cost of unchecked ambition and the price one could pay for seeking immortality. The Veiled Society. Mark had always been a journalist with a penchant for uncovering the hidden truths of the world. He thrived on exposing secrets and bringing the dark corners of society into the light. But it was his curiosity and thirst for the truth that would lead him down a treacherous path into a world he could never have imagined. It all began with whispers and rumors, tales of a secret society that operated in the shadows, wielding power and influence that went far beyond the understanding of ordinary citizens. Mark's investigation led him deeper into the hidden world of this powerful vampire society that controlled the city from behind the veils of secrecy. The Veiled Society was a complex network of the city's elite, a group that maintained a facade of normalcy while pulling the strings of power from the shadows. Mark had heard whispers of their existence, stories of political manipulation, and the puppeteering of influential figures, but he needed concrete evidence to expose the truth. His journey into the world of the Veiled Society began with the infiltration of their masquerade ball, a lavish event where the city's elite gathered under the cover of anonymity. Mark donned a mask and elegant attire, blending seamlessly into the sea of elaborate costumes and enchanting masks. As he moved through the crowd, Mark couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The guests, though masked, exuded an air of otherworldly charm and elegance. The atmosphere was electric, and the seductive allure of the society's members left Mark both captivated and cautious. It was there that Mark met Cassandra, a woman whose beauty and charm seemed to transcend the boundaries of humanity. Her eyes held a depth of knowledge and a seductive power that left Mark entranced. She was a high-ranking vampire within the society, and her presence exuded an aura of danger. Cassandra offered Mark a glimpse into the society's inner workings, hinting at their dark agenda. She spoke of their control over political figures, the manipulation of events, and their insatiable thirst for power. But her seductive words were laced with an ominous warning. The society did not take kindly to intruders. Mark's investigations had always been about exposing the truth, but the world he had entered was a dangerous and politically charged one. He had uncovered the dark secrets of the Veiled Society, but he was now entangled with Cassandra, a figure who held the key to his survival in this treacherous world. As Mark delved deeper into the society's hidden agenda, he discovered their involvement in a sinister plan that would have far-reaching consequences for the city and its inhabitants. Their thirst for power knew no bounds, and the consequences of their actions were chilling. The revelation of the society's dark agenda sent shivers down Mark's spine. He realized that he was playing a dangerous game, one where the consequences of revealing the truth were dire. The power and influence of the Veiled Society extended far beyond what he had ever imagined, and he was now a target within their midst. Mark's race to expose the truth and escape the clutches of the society became a perilous journey through the shadows of the city. He had uncovered their nefarious plans, but he knew that his life was in grave danger. As the city's influential figures moved like pawns on a chessboard, Mark fought to reveal the truth to the world. He sought allies in the most unexpected of places, individuals who were willing to risk everything to expose the hidden influences that controlled society. The Veiled Society was a haunting reminder of the hidden powers that manipulated the world from the shadows. Mark's journey had led him into a treacherous world where the consequences of revealing the truth were dire. It was a cautionary tale of the perils of exposing the hidden influences in society, and the sacrifices one had to make in the name of truth. The truth could set you free, but it could also seal your fate. In the heart of Transylvania, in the 19th century, a decrepit and abandoned castle loomed like a shadowy sentinel against the ominous, moonlit sky. Its towering turrets and crumbling walls stood as a testament to a forgotten era, a place where secrets and malevolence festered. This is the tale of Dr. Victor Helsing, a renowned vampire hunter, and his fateful encounter with Count Vladislaus, an ancient and cunning vampire. The night was as black as pitch when Dr. Helsing received an urgent message from a mysterious source. Whispers of a vampire threat had reached him, tales of villagers vanishing into the Transylvanian night, their lifeless bodies discovered drained of blood. Dr. Helsing, driven by a lifelong mission to eradicate the undead, could not ignore the call for help. With his loyal horse and a satchel filled with crucifixes, garlic, and a gleaming silver dagger, Dr. Helsing embarked on a treacherous journey to the foreboding castle. As he approached the decaying fortress, a chilling wind rustled the skeletal remains of the trees, their gnarled branches clawing at the moonlit sky. The castle's massive wooden doors creaked open as if beckoning him inside. Dr. Helsing cautiously entered, his boots echoing on the cold, stone floor. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by the flickering candlelight that lined the ancient corridor. It was a place frozen in time, filled with the whispers of long-dead servants and the mournful cries of souls forever trapped. Deeper into the castle he ventured, guided by an eerie, ethereal light that seemed to draw him ever forward. At last, he reached the heart of the castle, a grand chamber adorned with cobwebs and crumbling tapestries. In the center, sitting upon a throne-like chair, was Count Vladislaus, his eyes like twin embers of crimson fire. Dr. Helsing, I presume, the Count purred, his voice a seductive melody that sent shivers down the hunter's spine. Dr. Helsing steeled himself, clutching the silver dagger hidden beneath his coat. You are the vampire that plagues this land, Count Vladislaus. The Count's lips curled into a wicked smile, revealing glistening fangs. Indeed, I am. But I did not summon you here for a mere confrontation. No, Dr. Helsing, I have a proposition. With a wave of his hand, the chamber's torches dimmed, plunging the room into near darkness. Dr. Helsing's heart raced as he felt the walls closing in, the air growing heavy with the Count's sinister presence. Join me, the Count whispered, his voice wrapping around the hunter like a vice. Together, we could rule as immortals. Imagine the power we could wield. Dr. Helsing's resolve wavered for a moment, but the memories of the innocent villagers he had sworn to protect surged within him. Never, as if in response to his defiance, the chamber erupted in chaos. The walls seemed to shift, revealing hidden passages and trapdoors. Dr. Helsing was thrust into a deadly game of cat and mouse as he navigated the treacherous maze, always one step behind the cunning vampire. Each corridor led to another, each door opening to a new horror. The castle seemed to feed on Dr. Helsing's fear, twisting and contorting itself to confound and ensnare him. The Count's laughter echoed through the twisting passages, a haunting melody that never ceased. Hours turned into days as Dr. Helsing pressed on, his determination unyielding. He uncovered the castle's darkest secrets, its hidden crypts filled with the remains of countless victims, their final moments etched into the cold stone walls. At last, Dr. Helsing found himself standing before the castle's grand crypt, its massive doors beckoning him. He pushed them open, revealing the Count's lair. There, atop a stone altar, lay the vampire's coffin. With a triumphant gleam in his eye, Dr. Helsing approached the coffin, ready to end the vampire's reign of terror once and for all. But as he raised his dagger, the coffin lid flew open, and the Count emerged, his eyes aflame with rage. Their battle was fierce and relentless, a struggle between the forces of good and evil. The crypt echoed with the clash of steel and the cries of the damned. In the end, it was Dr. Helsing who prevailed, driving the silver dagger through the Count's heart. As the ancient vampire disintegrated into ash, the castle trembled and began to crumble around Dr. Helsing. With the vampire's demise, the malevolent magic that held the castle together was broken. Dr. Helsing narrowly escaped the collapsing fortress, emerging into the pale light of dawn. He watched as the castle, once a place of darkness and dread, was consumed by the earth, leaving nothing but a desolate mound of rubble. The eternal struggle between good and evil had come to a fateful end, and Dr. Helsing knew that the seductive power of darkness had been vanquished. But as he rode away from the ruins, he couldn't shake the feeling that the cost of vengeance had been higher than he could ever have imagined, and that in this deadly game, the line between hunter and hunted had blurred beyond recognition. In the heart of the Carpathian Mountains, a secluded village lay shrouded in an eternal mist. Modern-day life had scarcely touched this remote hamlet, where ancient legends whispered through the fog. It's here that our tale begins, with a skeptical journalist named Alina and a charismatic vampire named Count Dragomir. Alina had heard the rumors of the village's haunted history, and she couldn't resist the allure of a sensational story. Armed with her camera and notepad, she arrived in the village determined to expose the local vampire legend as nothing more than superstitious nonsense. The villagers, however, greeted her with wary eyes and hushed tones. They spoke of the vampire, a creature of the night that had haunted their lives for generations. With a smile on her face, Alina interviewed the villagers, believing their stories to be nothing more than folklore. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere in the village shifted. An eerie hush descended, and the mist grew thicker, wrapping around Alina like a sinister cloak. She couldn't ignore the feeling that something ancient and malevolent lurked in the shadows. It was then that she first saw him, a man who seemed to materialize from the fog itself. Tall and impeccably dressed, with piercing eyes that seemed to hold a hidden truth. It was Count Dragomir, the enigmatic figure at the heart of the legends. "Ah, you must be Alina," he purred, his voice smooth as velvet. "I've heard so much about you." Alina's skepticism faltered as she stood before the charismatic Count. He exuded an otherworldly charm that seemed to cast a spell on her. She found herself drawn to him, unable to resist his magnetic presence. They spoke late into the night, with Count Dragomir revealing tantalizing fragments of his own history. He claimed to be a relic of a bygone era, cursed with immortality and a thirst for knowledge. Alina's journalistic curiosity warred with her growing attraction to this mysterious stranger. As the night wore on, Count Dragomir extended an invitation to his ancestral home, an imposing mansion nestled on the outskirts of the village. He promised Alina the answers to her questions, an exclusive interview that would make her career. Despite the lingering doubts, she couldn't resist the temptation. The journey to the mansion was shrouded in fog, the road twisting and turning like a serpent through the ancient forest. Alina's heart pounded with each step closer to the enigmatic vampire's lair. She couldn't help but wonder if her skepticism had led her into a trap. Upon entering the mansion, the atmosphere shifted once more. Candlelit hallways seemed to stretch on endlessly, their shadows dancing with secrets. Portraits of Count Dragomir's ancestors lined the walls, their eyes following Alina's every move. As they delved deeper into the mansion, Count Dragomir revealed more of his past. He spoke of centuries spent in pursuit of forbidden knowledge, of the loneliness that came with immortality, and the allure of the night. Alina found herself captivated, unable to resist his story. But as they descended into the bowels of the mansion, Alina's skepticism began to resurface. She couldn't ignore the creeping sense of danger that clung to the air. It was then that she stumbled upon a hidden chamber, filled with ancient tomes and artifacts. Among the relics, she found a chilling revelation, the journal of a centuries-old vampire, detailing the price of immortality and the darkness that consumed those who embraced it. It was a stark contrast to the charismatic figure before her. Count Dragomir's true intentions became clear as the realization dawned on Alina. She had walked into the lair of a vampire with a hidden agenda, and she was now his unwitting prey. A race against time began as Alina fought to escape the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. The Count pursued her relentlessly, his true, monstrous form revealed as his veneer of charm shattered. He was a creature of the night, and Alina was the object of his insatiable hunger. Alina's skepticism had led her to the heart of a living nightmare, where the clash of belief and disbelief became a fight for survival. She navigated the maze-like mansion, finding hidden passages and traps that seemed designed to ensnare her. The night was a cacophony of terror as Alina evaded the Count's relentless pursuit. Candles flickered in the darkness, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to reach for her. She was trapped in a world where the supernatural was all too real. In a heart-pounding climax, Alina finally reached the mansion's exit, the first light of dawn breaking through the fog. The Count's anguished howl echoed through the forest as he retreated into the darkness. Alina had survived the night, but the allure of the supernatural and the consequences of her curiosity had left an indelible mark. She had come face to face with the very legends she had sought to debunk. And in the end, the line between belief and skepticism had blurred into a nightmarish reality. In the sultry embrace of 1920s New Orleans, where jazz filled the night air and the scent of magnolias hung heavy, there stood a grand, Gothic mansion. Its ivy-covered walls concealed a world of secrets and hidden desires, a place where Lady Genevieve, a debutante with a dark secret, would be drawn into a web of intrigue, romance, and danger. The mansion, known as the Blackthorn Manor, was a jewel in the city's crown, its towering spires and ornate balconies a testament to opulence. It was within these decadent walls that Lady Genevieve moved, a vision of beauty and grace, a mask of innocence concealing her deepest desires. The city's elite gathered at Blackthorn Manor for lavish masquerade balls, where the veil of propriety slipped away, revealing the passions that lurked beneath. It was at one such ball that Lady Genevieve first laid eyes on him, a man who exuded a magnetic charm that drew her in like a moth to a flame. He was Lord Sebastian, dashing and enigmatic, the embodiment of forbidden temptation. As the night swirled around them, Lady Genevieve and Lord Sebastian danced together, their steps an intimate tangle of desire. She could feel his eyes on her, his gaze like a caress that sent shivers down her spine. They moved through the ballroom as if they were the only two souls in the world, their connection electric. In the days that followed, Lady Genevieve and Lord Sebastian's romance blossomed in the shadow of the grand mansion. Their love was a forbidden one, a secret affair hidden from the prying eyes of society. She was drawn to his charisma, his knowledge of art and culture, his tales of distant lands. But as the weeks passed, Lady Genevieve began to notice peculiarities in her lover. His aversion to daylight, his strange appetite for rare meats, and his chilling, hypnotic gaze. She dismissed these oddities, convincing herself that love could conquer any darkness. It was during a sultry night beneath the dripping moss of the bayou that the truth began to reveal itself. In a secluded glade, Lady Genevieve stumbled upon a voodoo priestess who whispered cryptic warnings of the dangers that lurked within her lover's heart. The priestess spoke of a curse, a dark and insatiable hunger that could never be satisfied. Lady Genevieve's heart sank as she realized the truth. Lord Sebastian was a vampire, a creature of the night who craved the very essence of life itself. Terrified but determined, Lady Genevieve confronted Lord Sebastian with her discovery. He did not deny the truth, for he could not. Instead, he confessed to his vampiric nature, his centuries-long existence, and his insatiable thirst for blood. Their love, once passionate and all-consuming, became a battleground of conflicting desires. Lord Sebastian yearned for Lady Genevieve's immortal companionship, while she clung to the fading hope of a normal life. The mansion that had once been a palace of dreams became a prison of shadows. As Mardi Gras approached, the city of New Orleans buzzed with excitement. But for Lady Genevieve, it marked a deadly deadline. On Fat Tuesday, when the revelry reached its peak, Lord Sebastian's power would be at its zenith, and he would demand her eternal allegiance. Desperation drove Lady Genevieve to seek the aid of the voodoo priestess once more. With her guidance, she hatched a dangerous plan to break free of Lord Sebastian's grasp. She would confront him during the wild and chaotic celebration of Mardi Gras, where the streets thronged with revelers and the night was shrouded in chaos. On that fateful night, as the city danced and sang, Lady Genevieve and Lord Sebastian faced off amidst the festivity. The atmosphere was electric, a cacophony of music and laughter that masked the tension between them. In the shadowy alleyways of the French Quarter, Lady Genevieve revealed her voodoo-enchanted dagger, a weapon imbued with the power to destroy even a vampire. She plunged it into Lord Sebastian's heart, and as he crumbled to dust, the truth of his monstrous nature was revealed to all. But the victory came at a heavy cost. Lady Genevieve had sacrificed her love, her forbidden desires, and her own innocence to break free from the corrupting influence of power. The mansion that had once held her in its seductive grip now lay empty and forlorn, its grandeur fading like a wistful memory. In the end, Lady Genevieve had unmasked the deception of appearances, the allure of the supernatural, and the cost of embracing forbidden desires. She had danced with the darkness and emerged from the shadows, forever changed by the seductive, ominous, and mysterious world of 1920s New Orleans. In the desolate heart of the Balkans, amidst a small and remote village frozen in the 18th century, a profound darkness lingered. It was here that our story begins, with Father Mikhail, a devout priest, and Nadia, a young woman cursed by a vampire's bite. The village, nestled among towering mountains and dense forests, had known suffering and torment for generations. The villagers whispered of a vampire that prowled the night, claiming victims and sowing terror. But it was Nadia, a once beloved member of their community, who had become the embodiment of their darkest fears. Father Mikhail arrived in the village, a figure of faith and solace, bearing a heavy crucifix and the weight of his calling. He had been summoned to exorcise the vampire's curse from Nadia, to free her from the malevolent grip that held her soul. As he ventured deeper into the village, the air grew heavy with the weight of ancient sins. The houses were decrepit, the streets overgrown with weeds, and the shadows seemed to whisper the secrets of generations long past. Father Mikhail sensed the darkness that clung to every corner, and his heart filled with trepidation. In the dim light of the village church, Father Mikhail met Nadia. She was a pale and fragile figure, her eyes haunted by the horrors she had witnessed and committed under the vampire's curse. Her once joyful laughter had been replaced by mournful cries that echoed through the night. With trembling hands, Father Mikhail began the exorcism ritual, the ancient words of faith and salvation pouring from his lips. But as he spoke the holy verses, Nadia's body contorted, her eyes turned black as night, and her voice became a sinister, otherworldly chorus. It was then that Father Mikhail realized the true horror of the curse. It was not just the work of a vampire. It was a malevolent entity that had taken root within Nadia, a darkness that fed on the village suffering and despair. The exorcism became a harrowing battle between faith and doubt, good and evil. Father Mikhail clung to his beliefs, even as the malevolent force unleashed haunting visions that tested his resolve. He saw the faces of the damned, the tormented souls that had fallen victim to the vampire's curse. But he pressed on, determined to save Nadia's soul. As the night wore on, Father Mikhail's faith was pushed to its limits. He felt the weight of the village sins, the darkness that had festered for centuries. It threatened to consume him, to shatter his beliefs, but he fought on. In a final, climactic confrontation, Father Mikhail and the malevolent force battled for control of Nadia's soul. The church trembled, its walls cracking, and the heavens themselves seemed to weep. It was a struggle that transcended the physical, a battle of wills between the priest and the ancient evil. In the end, Father Mikhail's unwavering faith prevailed. With a blinding burst of light, the malevolent force was banished, leaving Nadia free from the curse that had tormented her. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Her soul cleansed of the darkness that had consumed her. But the victory came at a cost. The village lay in ruins, its sins laid bare for all to see. Father Mikhail had saved Nadia's soul, but the weight of the village's past sins had taken a toll on his own faith. He knew that the darkness within us all was a force that could never truly be vanquished. As Father Mikhail left the village, the air hung heavy with the weight of the past, the bleak and oppressive atmosphere unchanged. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but he could never forget the haunting visions and the malevolent force that had tested his faith to its limits. In the remote village of the Balkans, where ancient sins and the darkness within us all still lingered, Father Mikhail's exorcism had brought a momentary reprieve. But he knew that the battle between faith and doubt, good and evil, would continue to rage on, a testament to the enduring human struggle against the darkness that lurks in the shadows. Amidst the unforgiving waves of the North Atlantic, on a remote island shrouded in mist and legend, stood a Gothic castle that had borne witness to centuries of secrets. It was a place of isolation and mystery, where the winds howled like mournful ghosts, and the salted air held the taste of bitter longing. In the heart of this melancholic fortress, our tale unfolds, starring Professor Jonathan Graves, an occult scholar, and Countess Isolde, a vampire cursed with a tragic past. Professor Graves, a seeker of forbidden knowledge, had ventured to the castle in search of the secrets of immortality. He was driven by an insatiable curiosity, his mind thirsty for the mysteries that lay hidden within the castle's ancient texts and cryptic manuscripts. He believed that the key to eternal life might be found amid the shadows of its haunting corridors. As the days turned into weeks, Professor Graves delved deeper into the castle's labyrinthine library. His candlelit nights were spent poring over manuscripts filled with eerie poetry, haunting incantations, and cryptic diagrams that hinted at the very secrets of life and death. But the more he searched, the more he became consumed by a sense of melancholy that seemed to seep from the very walls of the castle. It was during one of these solitary nights that he first saw her, a vision of ethereal beauty that appeared in the moonlight. Countess Isolde, her porcelain skin kissed by the pale glow of the night, had the aura of both tragedy and timeless allure. Her presence was like a haunting melody that echoed through the castle's ancient halls. Their first encounter was a fateful one. As she approached him with a melancholic smile, her eyes filled with an enigmatic sadness, Countess Isolde had been born into a world of darkness, cursed with immortality and an insatiable thirst for blood. She had watched the centuries pass, her existence marked by the weight of her own solitude. As Professor Graves and Countess Isolde spent more time together, their connection deepened. Theirs was a love that transcended death, a forbidden romance that defied the boundaries of mortality. In each other's arms, they found solace and passion, their hearts intertwined in a dance of longing and despair. But their love came at a cost. The castle itself seemed to resent their union, its walls echoing with the whispers of ghosts who had borne witness to countless tragedies. And the knowledge that Professor Graves sought was more elusive than ever, as the lines between love and obsession blurred into one. As the days turned into months, Countess Isolde shared with Professor Graves her own tragic history. She spoke of a cursed love that had shattered her heart, of letters written in blood and the haunting poetry of a love that had been lost to time. It was a tale of pain and longing that mirrored their own doomed romance. But as their love deepened, so did the darkness that clung to the castle. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord. Whispers of lost souls filled the air, and Professor Graves began to have haunting visions. He saw the inevitable fate that awaited them, a reckoning with destiny that would test the very limits of their love. The climax of their story came on a stormy night, when the castle itself seemed to rebel against their love. Thunder rumbled overhead, and the winds howled like vengeful spirits. Professor Graves and Countess Isolde stood before an ancient altar, their hearts heavy with the weight of their choices. In a tearful farewell, they declared their love for each other, knowing that their passion could only end in tragedy. The castle seemed to respond, its very foundation shaking with grief and fury. And as the storm raged outside, the lovers embraced for the last time, their souls bound together for eternity. With a final, anguished cry, the castle crumbled around them, burying their love beneath its ancient stones. The winds carried their story across the North Atlantic, a tale of love transcending death, the pursuit of knowledge at any cost, and the inevitability of fate. And so, the Gothic castle on the remote island remained a monument to their love, its ruins haunted by the echoes of their passion and the melancholic atmosphere of a love that had defied time itself. For in the end, their love had become an eternal tale, a bittersweet reminder that even in the darkest corners of existence, love could still shine like a distant star. In the heart of a modern, decaying urban setting, a forgotten cemetery lay hidden from the bustling city that surrounded it. This was a place where the living rarely ventured, and the dead were left to rest in solitude. Among the tombstones and crumbling mausoleums, our story begins with Sarah, a young cemetery caretaker, and Victor, a vengeful vampire seeking retribution. Sarah had taken up the solemn task of caring for the cemetery, an old and forgotten plot of land that had seen better days. Overgrown with weeds and obscured by the shadows of forgotten memories, the cemetery held secrets that had long been buried. Sarah's routine maintenance often led her to uncovering graves that had been swallowed by time, their occupants fading into obscurity. One fateful day, as Sarah toiled beneath the gray sky, her shovel struck something hard and unyielding. She uncovered a long-forgotten grave, its tombstone chipped and weathered by years of neglect. The name etched into the stone sent a chill down her spine. Victor. As Sarah continued her work, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the very air around her had grown heavy with an oppressive presence. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and the wind carried a whisper that echoed through the cemetery like a mournful lament. Unbeknownst to Sarah, her actions had stirred something that had slumbered for centuries. Beneath the earth, in the depths of the forgotten grave, Victor had been awakened from his long, dreamless slumber. He had been buried alive, betrayed by those he once called family, and left to rot in the cold embrace of death. Now he hungered for vengeance. As night fell, Victor emerged from his tomb, his body bearing the pallor of death and his eyes aflame with an unholy hunger. He had become a creature of the night, a vampire seeking retribution for the betrayal that had condemned him to an eternity of darkness. Victor's pursuit of Sarah was relentless. He stalked her through the shadowy cemetery, his footsteps echoing like whispers in the night. His thirst for blood had become an insatiable craving, and Sarah had unwittingly become the object of his dark desires. Sarah, unaware of the terror that lurked in the darkness, continued her work in the cemetery. But as the days passed, she could not ignore the growing sense of dread that had settled over her. Strange occurrences plagued her. The sound of whispers in the wind, the flickering of candles in the night, and the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. One fateful evening, as Sarah was locking the cemetery gates, she felt a presence behind her. She turned to find Victor standing there, his eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. She knew then that she was not alone in the cemetery, and the realization filled her with a bone-chilling fear. A desperate battle ensued in the shadowy cemetery, as Sarah fought for her life against the relentless vampire. She brandished a cross, its holy power driving Victor back, but he was unyielding in his pursuit. Their struggle took them through the decaying tombstones and crumbling mausoleums, a chilling dance of predator and prey. As the battle raged on, the line between victim and perpetrator began to blur. Sarah's fear gave way to a burning rage, and she fought with a ferocity she never knew she possessed. Victor, driven by centuries of hatred and betrayal, found himself drawn to Sarah's strength and defiance. In a shocking twist, the two adversaries found themselves locked in an unexpected embrace, their lips meeting in a desperate kiss that transcended life and death. It was a union forged in the crucible of fear and desire, a moment where the boundaries of love and horror blurred into one. But as dawn approached, Victor's vampiric nature betrayed him. He recoiled from the first rays of sunlight, his body writhing in agony as he crumbled to ash. Sarah, exhausted and shaken, watched in disbelief as the vampire met his final fate. The decaying cemetery bore witness to their turbulent encounter, its tombstones standing as silent sentinels to the horrors that had unfolded within its shadowy confines. Sarah, forever marked by the night's events, left the cemetery with a heavy heart, knowing that the sins of the past had returned to haunt the present, and that the line between life and death was thinner than she had ever imagined. Amid the unforgiving beauty of the Swiss Alps, where snow-capped peaks reached towards the heavens, there stood a desolate mountain lodge, forgotten by time. This was a place of isolation and chilling secrets, where the winds howled like the tormented souls of the lost. In this frozen abyss, our story unfolds, with Dr. Evelyn Weber, a brilliant scientist, and Count Erich, a vampire consumed by a thirst for knowledge. Dr. Weber, a woman of unwavering ambition, had embarked on an expedition to study the rare alpine flora that thrived in the harsh conditions of the Swiss Alps. Armed with her scientific instruments and a heart filled with curiosity, she arrived at the remote mountain lodge, perched precariously on the edge of a cliff. The lodge was a stark contrast to the pristine beauty of the surrounding landscape. Its walls bore the scars of time, and the interior was shrouded in darkness, lit only by the cold light of the moon. Dr. Weber sensed that there was more to the lodge than met the eye, a history of secrets and scientific endeavors long hidden from the world. As the days passed, Dr. Weber's studies brought her deeper into the lodge's mysteries. She discovered hidden chambers filled with macabre experiments, alchemical symbols etched into the walls, and arcane texts that spoke of forbidden knowledge. It was clear that the lodge had once been a place of scientific curiosity, but the true nature of its experiments remained elusive. In her quest for answers, Dr. Weber uncovered the existence of Count Erich, a vampire who had been trapped within the lodge for centuries. He was a creature of both science and the supernatural, driven by an insatiable curiosity that had led him to tamper with the boundaries of life and death. Count Erich had once been a brilliant scientist himself, a man who had sought to unlock the secrets of immortality. But his experiments had gone horribly wrong, and he had become a vampire, a being neither fully alive nor dead, cursed to roam the lodge for eternity. Dr. Weber's arrival had awakened Count Erich's thirst for knowledge once more. He saw in her a kindred spirit, a fellow seeker of the unknown. He revealed to her his own experiments, his desperate attempts to bridge the gap between science and the supernatural. He sought to understand the very essence of life, to unlock the secrets of the universe itself. But as Dr. Weber delved deeper into Count Erich's experiments, she began to realize the true horror of his ambitions. He had created abominations, creatures that defied the laws of nature, and his quest for knowledge had come at a terrible cost. The lodge itself seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, a dark force that threatened to consume them both. As the truth of Count Erich's experiments came to light, Dr. Weber found herself in a desperate struggle for survival. The vampire's insatiable curiosity had led him to tamper with forces beyond human comprehension, and now those forces threatened to engulf them both. In a chilling climax, Dr. Weber and Count Erich faced off in the heart of the lodge's hidden laboratory, surrounded by the artifacts of their unholy experiments. The very foundations of the lodge seemed to tremble, as if the mountain itself rejected the abominations that had been created within its depths. With a final, desperate act, Dr. Weber unleashed the full force of the mountain's fury, triggering an avalanche that buried the lodge and its secrets beneath tons of snow and ice. She had escaped the deadly clutches of Count Erich, but the lodge remained a tomb of scientific curiosity gone horribly awry. As Dr. Weber made her way back to civilization, she knew that the dangers of unchecked ambition, the clash between science and the supernatural, and the consequences of tampering with the unknown were lessons that would stay with her forever. The Swiss Alps, once a place of wonder and beauty, now held a chilling reminder of the perils that lay hidden in the pursuit of knowledge. In the heart of a modern, decaying urban setting, an abandoned asylum stood as a testament to forgotten horrors. Its crumbling facade and shattered windows concealed the darkness that had once resided within its walls. In this forsaken place, our story unfolds, with Sarah, a fearless paranormal investigator, and Vincent, a tormented vampire seeking redemption. Sarah was no stranger to the paranormal. Armed with her recording equipment and a heart unburdened by fear, she had ventured into countless haunted locations, searching for evidence of the supernatural. The asylum, however, was unlike any place she had encountered before. The moment she stepped through its decaying doors, she felt the weight of the asylum's history bearing down on her. The air was thick with the echoes of past atrocities, the walls seeming to close in with each passing step. As she explored the dark corridors and shadowy cells, the sense of madness and despair that had plagued the asylum's inhabitants seeped into her very soul. Sarah's investigations soon revealed a history of torment and suffering. The asylum had been a place of cruel experiments, its inmates subjected to unspeakable horrors in the name of science. The memories of the past seemed to linger within the asylum's walls, manifesting as eerie echoes of past atrocities. It was during one of her investigations that Sarah first encountered Vincent. He appeared as a tormented apparition, his eyes filled with an unspeakable sadness. Vincent was a vampire, cursed with immortality and burdened by the weight of his own sins. In life, Vincent had been a doctor at the asylum, a man who had sworn to do no harm. But the lure of immortality had driven him to tamper with forces beyond his understanding. He had become a vampire, a creature neither fully alive nor dead, and the guilt of his actions had tormented him for centuries. Vincent yearned for redemption, a chance to atone for the horrors he had unleashed. He believed that if he could help Sarah uncover the truth about the asylum's past and the tortured souls that still lingered within, he could find a way to free himself from his curse. Sarah, drawn to Vincent's tortured soul, agreed to work with him. Together, they delved deeper into the asylum's history, uncovering the stories of the inmates who had suffered at the hands of sadistic doctors. They encountered eerie manifestations, apparitions of the tormented souls that still roamed the asylum's halls, their agonized cries echoing in the darkness. But as they drew closer to the truth, the supernatural forces within the asylum grew more malevolent. Sarah and Vincent found themselves locked in a harrowing battle against the vengeful spirits that sought to keep their secrets buried forever. In a climactic showdown within the asylum's depths, Sarah and Vincent faced the full force of the supernatural. The walls seemed to close in around them, the very air crackling with malevolent energy. Apparitions of past inmates materialized, their eyes filled with rage and torment. As the battle raged on, Sarah and Vincent struggled to hold onto their sanity. The asylum's haunted history threatened to consume them, its darkness seeping into their souls. But they fought with a determination born of desperation, determined to uncover the truth and free the tormented spirits that still lingered within. In the end, it was a sacrifice that brought redemption. Vincent, consumed by guilt and a desire to atone for his sins, made the ultimate sacrifice to free the asylum's spirit. With a selfless act of bravery, he banished the malevolent forces that had plagued the asylum for centuries, breaking the curse that had bound him. The asylum, once a place of unspeakable horrors, now stood silent and still. The tortured souls of its past inhabitants had found peace at last, their anguished cries replaced by a haunting, melancholic silence. As Sarah left the asylum behind, she knew that the thin line between sanity and madness had been tested, and the ghosts of the past had been laid to rest. The search for redemption had brought an end to the asylum's torment, and Vincent, though lost to her forever, had found the salvation he so desperately sought. In the Pacific Northwest, where the dense fog rolled in like a shroud, there lay a coastal town that harbored a sinister secret. It was a place of eerie landscapes and hidden mysteries, where the whispers of the sea seemed to carry the town's darkest secrets. In this coastal town, our story begins with Detective Anna Ramirez, a seasoned investigator, and Adrian, a vampire with a sinister agenda. Detective Ramirez had always prided herself on her ability to solve even the most baffling of cases. Her reputation for solving mysteries had earned her respect in the police department, but nothing could have prepared her for the darkness that lurked in the coastal town. It all began with the discovery of the first murder, a gruesome scene that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened officers. The victim's body had been drained of blood, the pale skin a stark contrast to the crimson stains that marred the crime scene. As Anna delved into the investigation, she was met with a wall of silence from the townspeople. They seemed to know more than they were willing to share, their faces twisted with fear whenever she asked about the murders. It was as if they were hiding something, a secret that lay buried beneath the surface of the town's fog-covered streets. Anna's search for answers led her to a series of disturbing discoveries. She uncovered a hidden society of vampires that had existed in the town for centuries, lurking in the shadows and preying on the unsuspecting. They had created a web of power and influence, with their dark agenda threatening to engulf the entire town. Adrian, a charismatic and enigmatic vampire, emerged as a central figure in Anna's investigation. He seemed to revel in the chaos and fear that gripped the town, his sinister agenda driving him to commit acts of unspeakable cruelty. Anna knew that she had to stop him before more lives were lost. As Anna delved deeper into the vampire underworld, she found herself drawn into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. The vampires seemed to anticipate her every move, their supernatural abilities giving them the upper hand. She had to rely on her instincts and determination to uncover the truth and bring Adrian to justice. The coastal town itself seemed to conspire against Anna. The fog that shrouded the streets obscured her vision, and the eerie landscapes held secrets that seemed to shift with the changing tides. It was a place where reality blurred with the supernatural, where the line between the living and the undead grew thin. An intense showdown in the town's underground tunnels. Anna confronted Adrian, their fates intertwined in a battle for survival. The tunnels were a labyrinth of darkness and dread, echoing with the whispers of past victims. It was a place where the corrupting influence of power and the pursuit of justice clashed in a final, climactic confrontation. As the battle raged on, Anna discovered a shocking revelation about her own connection to the vampires. She had been unknowingly drawn into their world, her own past holding the key to their dark agenda. It was a revelation that threatened to shatter her resolve, but Anna knew that she had to stay true to her pursuit of justice. In the end, it was a sacrifice that brought an end to the terror that had plagued the coastal town. Anna's determination and unwavering sense of justice prevailed, and the vampires were vanquished, their dark influence lifted from the town's streets. But the memory of the coastal town's horrors would haunt Anna forever. She knew that the darkness that hides in plain sight could take many forms, and that the pursuit of justice in the face of the supernatural required a strength and resolve that few could muster. As Anna left the town behind, she couldn't help but wonder how many other places held similar secrets, how many other detectives would be drawn into the darkness that lurked in the shadows. The coastal town's mysteries had been unraveled, but Anna knew that the darkness would always find a way to resurface, and that the line between the living and the undead was thinner than anyone could imagine. In a forgotten town, hidden away from the world, there stood a Gothic, labyrinthine library, a vast repository of knowledge and secrets. Its towering shelves held countless tomes, their pages heavy with the weight of centuries. In this labyrinth of knowledge, our story begins with Isabella, a bookish librarian, and Count Lucian, a vampire seeking forbidden knowledge. Isabella had always found solace among the musty, ancient pages of the library. It was a place where the past whispered in hushed tones, and the secrets of the world were hidden within its labyrinthine corridors. Her quiet life as the librarian of this forgotten town was one of solitude and contentment. But all that changed with the arrival of Count Lucian. He was a figure shrouded in mystery, his dark eyes filled with a hunger for knowledge that sent shivers down Isabella's spine. Lucian sought a rare and forbidden tome, a book rumored to hold the key to unlocking unimaginable power. As Isabella reluctantly assisted Lucian in his search, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing with forces beyond her understanding. The library held many secrets, and some were best left untouched. But Lucian's obsession with the forbidden knowledge within the elusive tome drove him forward, undeterred by the danger it posed. Their search led them deeper into the labyrinth of the library, where hidden passages and esoteric texts revealed themselves like pieces of a sinister puzzle. Isabella realized that the library itself seemed to conspire with Lucian, its walls shifting and rearranging to keep its darkest secrets hidden. As the search for the forbidden tome intensified, Isabella's sense of foreboding grew. She knew that the pursuit of knowledge at any cost could lead to dire consequences, and she was determined to protect the library's secrets from falling into the wrong hands. In a climactic showdown amidst the towering shelves of the library, Isabella and Lucian faced off, their fates intertwined in a battle of wits and wills. The very atmosphere seemed charged with the power of the arcane as they grappled for control of the forbidden tome. But in a chilling revelation, Isabella discovered the true nature of the tome, a dark grimoire that held not only knowledge but a malevolent presence. It hungered for souls, promising unimaginable power in exchange for their sacrifice. Isabella realized that Lucian was not merely seeking knowledge. He sought to unlock the forbidden power contained within the grimoire, and he was willing to pay any price. The danger of unlocking the forbidden loomed large, and Isabella knew that she had to stop him at any cost. In a desperate act of bravery, Isabella confronted Lucian, determined to protect the world from the dark forces that threatened to be unleashed. Their battle raged on, books falling from the shelves and ancient scrolls unraveling in a whirlwind of chaos. In the end, it was a sacrifice that halted the darkness. Isabella managed to wrest the grimoire from Lucian's grasp, sealing it away in the depths of the library, where its power could no longer harm the world. But the cost of her victory was high, and Isabella would forever carry the weight of the knowledge she had gained. As Isabella emerged from the labyrinthine library, she knew that the consequences of tampering with the arcane were not to be taken lightly. The pursuit of knowledge, while noble, could lead to the darkest of places, and the forbidden must remain hidden for a reason. The library would forever hold its secrets, and Isabella would be its guardian, protecting the world from the dangers of unlocking the unknown. Blood Moon Manor. The night was heavy with an eerie stillness as Dr. Eleanor Van Helsing arrived at the foreboding gates of Blood Moon Manor. The mansion loomed in front of her, an ancient and decrepit relic of a bygone era. Its stone walls were weathered and cracked, and its windows were shattered remnants of the once grand estate. Dr. Van Helsing was a woman of formidable intellect and unyielding determination. With a dark past that haunted her every step, she had dedicated her life to hunting the creatures of the night, vampires, who had claimed the lives of her family. Blood Moon Manor was her latest assignment, and she had heard whispers that it was a cursed place, the epicenter of a series of mysterious deaths. As she stepped through the creaking gates and into the moonlit courtyard, a shiver ran down her spine. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie crimson glow over the mansion, lending it an even more sinister appearance. She knew that tonight was no ordinary night. It was a blood moon, a night of power for vampires, when their strength was at its zenith. With every footstep, the atmosphere grew thicker, laden with dread and impending doom. Dr. Van Helsing's lantern cast flickering shadows that danced upon the walls, like restless souls seeking escape. She approached the imposing oak doors of the mansion, which groaned in protest as she pushed them open. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay and old secrets. Cobwebs draped the grand staircase, and the once opulent furnishings lay in ruins. Dr. Van Helsing knew she was not alone. The presence of the supernatural was palpable. She had entered the lair of Count Vladislaus, an enigmatic and powerful vampire lord. Her investigation led her through the winding corridors of the mansion, where she uncovered traces of a sinister history. Portraits of long-forgotten nobles with hollow eyes lined the walls, and whispers echoed in the air like the mournful cries of the damned. Hidden passages concealed ancient texts that hinted at the mansion's malevolent past and the curse that bound it. As she delved deeper into the heart of Blood Moon Manor, Dr. Van Helsing's resolve grew stronger. She had faced countless vampires in her lifetime, but none as formidable as Count Vladislaus. The vampire lord had a taste for vengeance, and he had spared no expense in protecting his lair from intruders. Then, in the darkest recesses of the mansion, she found the crypt. It was a chamber of unspeakable horrors, where the remains of countless victims lay in various states of decay. Dr. Van Helsing's heart sank as she realized the true extent of the vampire lord's malevolence. She could feel Count Vladislaus closing in on her, his presence like a shadowy specter in the night. The final confrontation was inevitable. Dr. Van Helsing had one advantage, one weapon that could turn the tide in her favor, the knowledge that vengeance and darkness always came at a price. The night had deepened, and the crimson moon hung lower in the sky. Dr. Van Helsing stood her ground in the crypt, her lantern casting eerie, shifting shadows on the walls. She could hear the whispers of the vampire lord, taunting her, promising her eternal darkness. And then he emerged from the shadows, a figure of elegance and menace. Count Vladislaus, his eyes gleaming with malevolent hunger, advanced with a grace that belied his monstrous nature. Dr. Van Helsing met his gaze with unyielding resolve, her hand gripping a stake carved from a branch of the oldest oak tree. Their clash was swift and brutal, a dance of life and death in the depths of the cursed mansion. Count Vladislaus moved with supernatural speed, his fangs bared and his claws extended. Dr. Van Helsing fought with a determination born of years of pain and loss. In the end, it was the allure of darkness and the weight of vengeance that proved to be Count Vladislaus's downfall. Dr. Van Helsing struck the vampire lord through the heart with the oak stake, and he crumbled into dust, his malevolent presence dissipating into the night. As the crimson moon waned and the first rays of dawn broke through the shattered windows of Blood Moon Manor, Dr. Van Helsing knew that her mission was complete. The curse that had plagued the mansion had been lifted, and its dark secrets would remain buried forever. She stepped out into the courtyard, the weight of the night's events heavy upon her shoulders. The once decrepit mansion now stood silent and still, its malevolence vanquished. Dr. Alina Van Helsing had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but she knew that her battle against the creatures of the night would continue. The eternal struggle between good and evil would rage on, and she would be there to stand against it, no matter the cost. Shadows of the Vampire. In the heart of the Carpathian Mountains, where the dense forests cast long, haunting shadows, there lay a small, isolated village. This village, hidden away from the world, held a dark secret that few dared to whisper about. It was a place where the veil between reality and nightmare was thin, and where the innocence of its people was constantly threatened by an ancient evil. Among the villagers was a young woman named Alina. With raven black hair and a spirit filled with curiosity, she had always been drawn to the mysteries that shrouded her home. Yet, nothing could have prepared her for the horrors that awaited her in the depths of the forest. As the village slept under the silvery glow of the moon, Alina's restless soul urged her to explore the unknown. She crept through the dark woods, her steps cautious but filled with determination. Her curiosity had led her to stories of a malevolent force that haunted their village, a vampire named Lord Damien. Alina had heard whispers in the dead of night, tales told in hushed tones about his charismatic presence that hid a sinister hunger. She had listened to the anguished cries of mothers mourning their stolen children and the mournful wails of lovers who had vanished into the night, never to return. It was said that Lord Damien's lair lay deep within the heart of the forest, hidden beneath the tangled branches and the chilling silence of the night. And it was there, guided by an eerie intuition, that Alina found herself standing before the entrance to the vampire's lair. The air grew colder with each step she took into the depths of the cave. Shadows danced upon the walls, their movements both hypnotic and menacing. Alina's heart pounded in her chest as she ventured further, guided only by a faint, otherworldly whisper that urged her onward. As she reached the heart of the cave, her lantern's dim light revealed a horrifying sight. The cave's walls were lined with skeletal remains, their hollow eyes seeming to watch her every move. It was a chilling testament to the countless lives that had been claimed by Lord Damien's insatiable thirst for blood. Alina's breath caught in her throat as she realized the magnitude of the danger she had placed herself in. Panic threatened to consume her, but she knew that turning back was no longer an option. Her loved ones, her village, depended on her courage. With a trembling hand, Alina withdrew a small vial of liquid from her satchel. It was a concoction passed down through generations, a mixture of herbs and potions rumored to hold the power to confound and weaken the undead. It was her only hope, her desperate plan to outsmart Lord Damien. As she made her way deeper into the cave, the eerie whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a chilling symphony of the damned. Shadows danced and contorted, taking on sinister forms that reached out to grasp her. But Alina pressed on, her heart filled with determination and dread in equal measure. And then she found him. Lord Damien, the vampire who had cast a dark shadow over her village, stood before her in all his malevolent glory. His piercing gaze locked onto her, and his lips curled into a sinister smile that revealed gleaming fangs. "You are brave to venture into my domain, little mortal," he hissed, his voice a cruel melody. "But bravery alone will not save you." With a grace that defied his monstrous nature, Lord Damien lunged at Alina, his fangs bared and eyes ablaze with hunger. But she was ready. With a swift, practiced motion, she flung the vial of her ancestors' potion toward the vampire, and it shattered upon impact. A cloud of noxious vapor enveloped Lord Damien, and his triumphant expression twisted into one of agony. He howled in torment as the potion's magic seared through his undead flesh. Alina's heart pounded as she watched him weaken, his powers waning. Summoning all her strength and resolve, Alina drew a wooden stake from her satchel and plunged it into Lord Damien's heart. The vampire let out a blood-curdling scream as he disintegrated into ash, his malevolence vanquished at last. With Lord Damien defeated, Alina emerged from the cave, her heart heavy with the knowledge of the darkness she had faced and conquered. The villagers, no longer living in fear, celebrated her bravery and determination. But Alina knew that the battle between innocence and corruption was an eternal one, and that the shadows of the vampire would forever haunt their forested home. Yet, as she looked up at the moonlit sky, she also knew that their strength, their determination, would always prevail against the forces of darkness that lurked in the unknown. Crimson Veil. The night was alive with whispers of forbidden desires and hidden temptations. A lavish ballroom, shrouded in darkness, lay nestled within the ancient walls of a European castle. It was a place where reality and illusion merged, where the boundaries between pleasure and peril blurred, and where Isabella, a talented young dancer, was about to step into a world she could never have imagined. Isabella had received an invitation, an ornate envelope adorned with an elegant blood-red seal. It bore the seal of Count Draven, a charismatic vampire noble who had long held a captivating allure over those who had heard of him. The invitation was to a masquerade ball that promised to be a night of opulence and enchantment. It was an invitation that she could not resist. As Isabella arrived at the castle, she was greeted by the flickering light of torches that cast eerie shadows on the stone walls. The air was heavy with anticipation as she entered the ballroom, its opulent decor awash in shades of crimson. Chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, their crystal prisms glinting like diamonds, while guests in elaborate masks and sumptuous attire twirled across the floor. The dance began, and Isabella found herself gliding effortlessly, her body moving in time with the hypnotic rhythm of the music. As she danced, she couldn't help but feel a sense of seductive enchantment in the room, an allure that seemed to emanate from every corner. It was then that Isabella's gaze locked with a pair of piercing, crimson eyes, the eyes of Count Draven himself. He was a vision of dark elegance, his pale skin contrasting sharply with his black attire. He moved through the ballroom with a predatory grace, drawing the attention of all who had gathered. With a smile that was both charming and unnerving, Count Draven approached Isabella and extended a hand, inviting her to join him in a dance. She hesitated for only a moment before placing her hand in his, and they glided onto the dance floor together. The world around Isabella seemed to fade away as she danced with the enigmatic vampire. His touch was cold and electric, sending shivers down her spine. She felt herself drawn deeper into his seductive embrace, unable to resist the allure of his presence. As they danced, Count Draven leaned closer, his lips brushing against her ear. "Do you know what we truly are, my dear?" he whispered, his voice dripping with temptation. Isabella's heart raced as she realized the truth, that she was surrounded by vampires, creatures of the night who thrived on the blood of the living. The other guests wore masks of beauty and elegance, but beneath the facade, they were predators in disguise. The ballroom pulsed with a dark, hypnotic energy, and Isabella's fear mingled with a thrilling sense of danger. She had entered a world of temptation and forbidden desires, where the line between pleasure and peril was razor thin. As the night wore on, Count Draven led Isabella to a secluded alcove, hidden behind a heavy, crimson velvet curtain. There, away from the prying eyes of the other guests, he revealed more of his true nature. His fangs extended, glistening in the dim light, and he leaned closer to her neck, his breath hot against her skin. Isabella knew that she was at the mercy of the vampire's desires, and yet a part of her was inexplicably drawn to him. It was a dangerous, intoxicating dance of seduction, one that promised both ecstasy and peril. But just as Count Draven's fangs grazed her skin, a sudden commotion erupted in the ballroom. The other guests had begun to reveal their own vampiric natures, their masks falling away to reveal rows of sharp teeth and hungry eyes. Panic swept through the room as the vampires descended upon the unsuspecting guests, and chaos ensued. Isabella watched in horror as the ballroom transformed into a nightmarish tableau of violence and predation. With a surge of adrenaline, Isabella pushed away from Count Draven, her heart pounding with fear and determination. She knew that she had to escape the castle and the darkness that had ensnared her. As she fled through the winding corridors of the castle, she could hear the vampires' bloodthirsty cries behind her. They pursued her with a relentless hunger, their predatory instincts driving them to seek the taste of her blood. Finally, Isabella burst through the castle doors and into the moonlit courtyard. She ran through the gardens, her breath ragged, her heart racing. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the ancient stones. But just as she thought she had evaded her pursuers, Count Draven appeared before her, his eyes aflame with hunger. He cornered her against a stone wall, his fangs inches from her throat. In that desperate moment, Isabella reached into her satchel and withdrew a vial of holy water. With trembling hands, she splashed it onto Count Draven's face, and he howled in pain as the holy power burned his undead flesh. With a final, desperate push, Isabella shoved him away and sprinted into the night. She could hear Count Draven's enraged cries echoing through the castle as she disappeared into the darkness. As she looked back at the castle, she knew that she had narrowly escaped the clutches of the seductive vampires. She had glimpsed the price of indulgence, the danger of temptation, and the allure of the unknown. And as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Isabella knew that she had survived a night of terror and seduction, but the memory of the crimson veil would haunt her dreams forever. Nightfall in New Orleans. The streets of New Orleans came alive with a riot of colors and music as Mardi Gras festivities reached their peak. It was a night of revelry, a night when the city's soul seemed to dance to the rhythm of jazz and the beat of 1,000 hearts. But amid the celebration, a sinister presence lurked, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Detective Marie Laveau, a seasoned investigator with eyes that held the wisdom of years spent in pursuit of the darkest secrets, had learned to distrust the festive atmosphere of Mardi Gras. Beneath the vibrant carnival masks and the intoxicating scent of Cajun cuisine, a shadowy figure moved silently, preying on the revelers. It began with the discovery of a lifeless body amidst the joyous parade. A young woman, her eyes wide with terror, lay cold and pale on the cobblestone street, a mask of crimson and gold next to her. It was a gruesome sight amidst the vibrant celebration, a reminder that darkness could intrude even upon the brightest of festivities. Detective Laveau knew that she had to act swiftly. She followed the trail of blood through the labyrinthine streets, her footsteps echoing in the night. The city seemed to hold its breath as if anticipating the next victim, and the music of the parade grew distant as she delved deeper into the heart of the night. It was then that she saw him, a man with an air of predatory elegance, dressed in a tuxedo that seemed out of place amidst the carnival costumes. His name was Marcel, and he was a vampire with a taste for revelry. He moved through the crowded streets with an effortless grace, blending seamlessly with the throngs of festival goers. Detective Lavau's pursuit of Marcel led her through a maze of elaborate Mardi Gras costumes and whispered legends of the Bay. She could feel his presence, a chilling shadow in the midst of celebration. But the vampire remained elusive, slipping through her grasp like a phantom. As the night wore on, Detective Laveau sought the guidance of a voodoo priestess, a wise woman who dwelled in the heart of the city. The priestess spoke of ancient legends and the delicate balance between light and darkness during Mardi Gras. She provided Detective Laveau with a vial of enchanted water, blessed with the power to reveal the vampire's true nature. Armed with the voodoo priestess's gift, Detective Laveau continued her pursuit. She followed the trail of revelers, each step taking her closer to Marcel and the impending danger. The streets of New Orleans pulsed with energy, but the detective could sense the darkness lurking beneath the joyful facade. Finally, she cornered Marcel in a haunted cemetery on the outskirts of the city. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the moss-draped tombstones. Detective Lavau's heart raced as she confronted the vampire, her grip firm on the vial of enchanted water. Marcel, his eyes gleaming with hunger, lunged at her with supernatural speed. But Detective Laveau was ready. She splashed the enchanted water onto Marcel's face, and his elegant mask of humanity melted away, revealing the monster beneath. With a guttural snarl, Marcel recoiled, his fangs bared in a silent scream of agony. The enchanted water seared through his undead flesh, leaving him vulnerable and weakened. It was a moment of reckoning, a clash between the forces of light and darkness on the most sacred night in New Orleans. Detective Laveau knew that she had to act swiftly. She drew a wooden stake from her coat, its sharpened tip glinting in the moonlight. With a determined thrust, she plunged it into Marcel's heart, and he crumbled into dust. His reign of terror ended. As the first rays of dawn broke over the haunted cemetery, Detective Marie Laveau stood victorious, a symbol of the resilience of the human spirit against the lurking horrors of the night. The revelry of Mardi Gras continued in the distance, but the city was safe once more. New Orleans, a city of vibrant celebration and hidden horrors, had faced its darkest night and emerged into the light of a new day. Detective Laveau knew that the clash between light and darkness was eternal. But on this sacred night, light had triumphed over the shadows, and the city would dance once more to the rhythm of life. Midnight Express. Beneath the bustling metropolis, hidden from the world above, lay a labyrinthine nightmare, an abandoned subway station overrun by vampires. Its dark, forgotten tunnels echoed with the whispered secrets of the undead. And in the depths of the subterranean world, Max and a group of survivors fought for their lives. Max, a resourceful survivor with the weariness of countless sleepless nights etched into his features, had discovered the subway station as a last refuge. Its grimy walls were adorned with eerie graffiti, and flickering lights cast long, menacing shadows. It was a place where the fear of confinement clawed at their minds. But it was also their only chance of survival. The vampires had descended upon the city like a plague, their numbers multiplying with each passing night. Victor, their cunning leader, had found a haven beneath the city's streets, and he ruled the underground world with an iron grip. Max and his fellow survivors knew that they could not stay hidden forever. Food and supplies were running low, and their desperate attempts to outsmart the vampires had grown increasingly dangerous. They had to escape the underground labyrinth, but the tunnels were a treacherous maze of darkness and peril. One fateful night, as the survivors huddled together in the subway station, Max made a decision. With grim determination, he rallied the group and outlined a plan to escape through the tunnels, avoiding the vampires' hunting grounds and reaching the surface. Their journey through the underground labyrinth was a harrowing one. The flickering lights cast eerie, shifting shadows that seemed to come to life. Every creak and echo of the tunnels was a reminder of the lurking danger, and the constant threat of vampire attacks kept their nerves on edge. As they pressed on, Max could feel the hopelessness of their situation closing in. The tunnels seemed to stretch on endlessly, their confinement suffocating. Yet, he knew that giving in to despair was not an option. The will to survive burned fiercely within him, and he urged his fellow survivors to push forward. But the vampires were relentless in their pursuit. Victor, their cunning leader, seemed to anticipate their every move. He taunted them from the shadows, his voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the tunnels. He knew that the survivors were desperate, that their chances of escape were growing slim. As they ventured deeper into the labyrinth, Max and his group encountered traps set by the vampires, pitfalls, false exits, and dead-end tunnels that threatened to trap them forever. It was a game of survival, a deadly chess match in the darkest of arenas. With each passing hour, their numbers dwindled as the vampires closed in. The survivors fought back with whatever weapons they could find, makeshift stakes and torches, but the odds were stacked against them. And then, just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they stumbled upon an ancient subway car, long abandoned and covered in dust. It offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to outrun the vampires and reach the surface. As the survivors clambered into the subway car, Max took one last look back at the darkness of the tunnels. He knew that they were leaving behind a world of nightmares, but they were also leaving behind their fear and despair. The subway car rattled to life, its wheels screeching against the tracks as it sped through the underground tunnels. The vampires, their eyes burning with hunger and rage, pursued with unearthly speed, but the survivors had a chance, a narrow window of escape. The journey through the tunnels was a nightmarish blur of flickering lights and fleeting glimpses of the vampires behind them. The subway car hurtled toward the surface, its destination a beacon of hope in the darkness. As they burst into the night above, the survivors gasped for breath, their eyes blinded by the sudden flood of moonlight. They had made it, but the battle was far from over. The vampires, thwarted in their pursuit, would not rest until they had exacted their revenge. Max and his fellow survivors knew that they had survived a nightmarish ordeal, that the fear of confinement had been replaced by the exhilaration of freedom. But they also knew that the vampires still lurked in the shadows, waiting for their next opportunity. As they made their way through the city, Max's gaze turned upward, to the endless expanse of the night sky. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, There was always a glimmer of hope, a chance for survival, and the resilience of the human spirit to defy the forces of darkness. The Vampires of Vienna. In the heart of 19th century Vienna, a city steeped in history and culture, where the grandeur of palaces and the elegance of ballrooms hid secrets darker than the deepest shadows, Professor Johann von Helsing arrived with a purpose. He was a scholar of the occult, a seeker of the unknown, and his journey had brought him to this city where history and horror intertwine. Vienna's cobblestone streets whispered tales of long-forgotten societies. Vampires, creatures of the night who had thrived in the shadows of history. They had hidden themselves well beneath the facade of aristocratic grandeur and the strains of Viennese classical music. As Professor von Helsing delved deeper into the city's mysteries, he discovered a resurgence of vampire activity, a resurgence that threatened the delicate balance between the living and the undead. The professor knew that he had to uncover the truth, to unravel the secrets that had been carefully hidden away for centuries. It was in the dimly lit corridors of Vienna's underground catacombs that he first encountered Lady Isolde, a vampire with a tragic past. Her eyes, once filled with the light of life, now bore the weight of centuries of darkness. She had been part of the hidden vampire society that lurked in the city's shadows, but she sought redemption, a way to escape the eternal curse that bound her. Their paths had crossed in the most unlikely of places, a forgotten chamber deep within the catacombs, where Lady Isolde had been imprisoned by her own kind. Professor von Helsing, armed with his knowledge of the occult and the strength of his convictions, had come to confront the vampire threat, but he had not expected to encounter such a complex figure. Lady Isolde's beauty was haunting, her presence a blend of elegance and despair. She spoke of a past filled with longing and regret, a past that had driven her to seek forgiveness for the unspeakable deeds of her kind. As Professor von Helsing delved deeper into the world of Vienna's vampires, he uncovered a complex web of politics and power struggles, where ancient rivalries and forbidden desires simmered beneath the surface. The vampire society was governed by a council of elders, each with their own hidden agendas, and it was clear that the balance between the old and new worlds was fragile. Amidst the grandeur of Vienna's opulent ballrooms and the haunting strains of a vampire opera that echoed through the night, Professor von Helsing and Lady Isolde formed an uneasy alliance. She shared with him the secrets of her kind, the vulnerabilities and strengths of the vampires, and he in turn offered her a glimmer of hope for redemption. Their relationship was a complex dance of trust and betrayal, a dance that mirrored the elegance and horror of Vienna itself. Lady Isolde longed for forgiveness, for a chance to break free from the chains of her vampiric nature, while Professor von Helsing remained resolute in his mission to uncover the truth and protect the living. As they delved deeper into the heart of the vampire society, they discovered a hidden plot, a plan to unleash a new wave of darkness upon the city. The Council of Elders, driven by their thirst for power, sought to expand their influence and control over Vienna, threatening the very fabric of the city's existence. Professor von Helsing and Lady Isolde knew that they had to act swiftly. They ventured into the depths of the catacombs, where the Council of Elders held their meetings, their plans veiled in secrecy and shadow. It was a treacherous journey, filled with traps and betrayals, but they pressed on, driven by their shared goal. In the climactic showdown, amidst the haunting echoes of the vampire opera, Professor von Helsing and Lady Isolde confronted the Council of Elders. The battle that ensued was a testament to their resilience and determination, a clash of old and new worlds, of forgiveness and vengeance. In the end, they emerged victorious, but not without sacrifices. The Council of Elders was vanquished, and Vienna was freed from the looming darkness that had threatened to consume it. Lady Isolde, her thirst for redemption finally realized, made the ultimate sacrifice to protect the city she had once terrorized. As the first rays of dawn broke over Vienna, Professor Johann von Helsing stood amidst the ruins of the vampire society, a symbol of the enduring power of love and forgiveness in the face of darkness. The city, with its grandeur and elegance, had been saved, and the echoes of its haunted past slowly faded into history. In the heart of 19th century Vienna, where elegance and horror had danced a delicate waltz, the vampires of old had been vanquished, and a new chapter had begun, a chapter where the past and present could coexist, where forgiveness could conquer even the darkest of desires. The haunting of Harrogate House. The fog clung to the edges of Harrogate House like a shroud, obscuring the sprawling, decaying mansion that stood on the outskirts of the fog-shrouded town. Sarah had inherited this cursed house, a place of chilling legends and whispered tales, and now she returned to uncover the tragic history that lay within its decaying walls. Sarah, a young woman with a heavy heart and a determination to unravel the mysteries of her past, had been drawn back to her ancestral home. The weight of family legacies hung heavy upon her, and she felt an unspoken obligation to confront the secrets that had plagued her family for generations. As she stepped through the creaking front door of Harrogate House, she was greeted by an oppressive silence, broken only by the faint echo of her own footsteps on the worn wooden floors. Cobwebs draped from the ornate chandeliers, and dust-covered portraits of her ancestors lined the walls, each with their own haunting story to tell. But it was not the portraits that troubled Sarah the most. It was the ghostly presence that seemed to linger in the corners of her vision. Samuel, a vampire from her family's distant past, had made this house his eternal prison. His tragic history was intertwined with that of Harrogate House, and he was bound to it by a curse that defied the boundaries between life and death. As Sarah delved deeper into the mysteries of the house, she uncovered the dark and tragic past of Samuel. He had been a man consumed by darkness, a vampire who had sought eternal life at a terrible cost. The curse that bound him to the mansion had been a result of his insatiable thirst for power and immortality. Sarah's ancestors had discovered Samuel's dark secret and had imprisoned him within the mansion's walls. His ghostly presence had haunted the house for centuries, a reminder of the price that had been paid for the family's legacy. With each passing day, Samuel's spirit grew stronger, and Sarah could feel his malevolent presence closing in. The atmosphere in Harrogate House grew increasingly oppressive, and she knew that she had to confront the vengeful vampire if she hoped to break the curse that bound him to the mansion. It was on a moonless night, as the fog outside enveloped the house in an impenetrable shroud, that Sarah came face to face with Samuel's spirit. She stood in the dimly lit drawing room, surrounded by the eerie silence of the mansion. Samuel's ghostly form materialized before her, his eyes filled with an otherworldly hunger. He spoke of his torment, of the centuries he had spent in darkness, and the bitterness that had consumed his soul. He longed for release, for a chance to break free from the curse that bound him to the house. But Sarah knew that the curse was not easily broken. It was a curse born of dark deeds and unforgivable sins, and it had endured through generations. She realized that she was the key to breaking the curse, that her presence in Harrogate House held the power to confront the darkness of her family's past. With a heavy heart, Sarah made a fateful decision. She would confront the darkness within the mansion, the legacy of her ancestors, and the vengeful vampire that haunted its halls. She would seek a way to break the curse, to free Samuel's tormented spirit from its eternal prison. As she delved deeper into the house's hidden passages and long-forgotten secrets, Sarah uncovered the key to breaking the curse, a long-lost family heirloom, a relic of her family's dark past. With the relic in hand, she confronted Samuel in a chilling showdown that would determine the fate of Harrogate House and its haunted legacy. In the dimly lit drawing room, the relic glowed with an otherworldly light as Sarah faced Samuel's ghostly presence. The boundaries between life and death seemed to blur, and the house itself groaned as if in agony. With a final, desperate act, Sarah used the relic to banish Samuel's spirit from Harrogate House, breaking the curse that had bound him for centuries. The mansion trembled, and Samuel's agonized cries echoed through the halls as he faded into oblivion. The fog outside slowly lifted, revealing Harrogate House in all its eerie splendor. Sarah stood in the drawing room, the weight of centuries of family legacies and dark secrets lifting from her shoulders. The house was no longer haunted by the vengeful vampire's presence, and a sense of peace settled over its decaying halls. Harrogate House, once a place of darkness and despair, was now free from the curse that had plagued it for generations. The fog-shrouded town, unaware of the battles that had been fought within the mansion's walls, continued on with its daily life. As Sarah left the house behind, she knew that the past could never truly be erased, but the boundaries between life and death had been restored. The weight of her family's legacy had been lifted, and the haunting of Harrogate House was a tale that would fade into the annals of history, a story of redemption and the enduring power of love. Midnight at the Carnival. In the darkest hour of the night, when the world slept and the moon hung low in the sky, a macabre carnival emerged from the depths of shadow, appearing in an abandoned field on the outskirts of town. It was a place of twisted wonders, where nightmares danced with reality, and the living dared to glimpse the otherworldly. Leela, a young woman with an insatiable curiosity, had heard whispers of the mysterious midnight carnival that appeared only in the witching hour. Its allure was undeniable, drawing her like a moth to a flame. She longed to unravel the secrets hidden within its twisted tents and grotesque performances. As Leela approached the field where the carnival stood, a sense of foreboding washed over her. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, and the flickering lanterns that illuminated the carnival's entrance cast long, menacing shadows. She knew that once she crossed the threshold, there would be no turning back. The entrance to the carnival was marked by a tattered banner that read "Midnight at the Carnival" in macabre, swirling letters. Leela hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. But her curiosity overcame her fear, and she stepped inside. The world she entered was a surreal dreamscape, a nightmare brought to life. Twisted attractions lined the carnival grounds, a hall of mirrors that distorted reality, a hypnotic, vampiric dance troupe that moved with otherworldly grace, and a fortune-teller's tent where the future was foretold in blood. But it was the ringmaster, a tall, sinister figure named Lucius, who held Leela's attention. His eyes were like pools of darkness, and his voice dripped with honeyed malevolence as he invited her to become part of the carnival's grotesque performance. Leela was unable to resist the allure of the bizarre, and she found herself entangled in the carnival's nightmarish acts. She was strapped to a spinning wheel, where knives hurled through the air with deadly precision, narrowly missing her. She was placed in a cage and paraded before the carnival's audience, who jeered and applauded as if they were witnessing a grand spectacle. The boundary between reality and illusion blurred, and Leela felt as if she had been transported to a realm beyond the mortal world. The carnival's grotesque performers, with their contorted bodies and twisted smiles, seemed to exist outside of time and space, trapped in an eternal performance of the bizarre. As the night wore on, Leela's sense of dread deepened. She knew that she had become a pawn in the carnival's nightmarish game, a puppet in the hands of a malevolent ringmaster. She longed to escape the carnival's clutches, to break free from its hypnotic hold, but the more she struggled, the tighter the chains of her captivity grew. It was then that she discovered the true nature of the carnival and its ringmaster, Lucius. As the clock struck midnight, the carnival underwent a grotesque transformation. The performers' bodies contorted and twisted, their faces contorting into nightmarish masks. They revealed their true selves, vampires, creatures of the night who thrived on the terror of the living. Leela's heart pounded as she realized the horrifying truth. The carnival was a trap, a feeding ground for the vampires, and she had unwittingly become their prey. Lucius, the ringmaster, was their leader, and he reveled in the fear and despair of his captives. In a final, horrifying revelation, Lucius revealed his fangs and lunged at Leela, his eyes gleaming with hunger. She could feel the cold, sharp points of his teeth as they sank into her neck, and a searing pain shot through her body. But as her vision faded, as the darkness of the carnival closed in around her, Leela summoned every ounce of her willpower and fought back. With a desperate burst of strength, she broke free from the ringmaster's grasp and fled into the night. The carnival and its nightmarish performers chased after her, their grotesque forms illuminated by the pale moonlight. Leela's heart pounded in her chest as she ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but she refused to succumb to the darkness that pursued her. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Leela reached the edge of the carnival grounds. The vampires, bound by their curse, were forced to retreat, their grotesque forms dissolving into the shadows. Leela collapsed to the ground, her body battered and bruised, but her spirit unbroken. She had survived the nightmarish carnival, had escaped the clutches of the vampiric ringmaster, and had returned to the world of the living. As she lay on the cold, damp ground, Leela knew that the carnival would return, that its macabre wonders would once again tempt the curious and the daring. But she also knew that she had faced the nightmare, and had emerged from the other side, a survivor of the horrors that lurked in the darkest corners of the human psyche. Midnight at the Carnival was a tale whispered in hushed tones, a story of the allure of the bizarre and the consequences of curiosity. It was a nightmare brought to life, a surreal dreamscape where reality and illusion danced in a twisted waltz, and where the line between life and death was blurred by the haunting presence of the vampires that thrived in the darkness. The Silent Coven, in the remote reaches of Eastern Europe, where mist shrouded the land like a veil of secrets, there existed a village forgotten by time. Its name whispered only in hushed tones, for it harbored a coven of reclusive vampires who had lived in the shadows for centuries. Elena, a curious outsider with an insatiable wanderlust, had stumbled upon this mysterious village quite by accident. Her journey through the dense, fog-covered forests had led her to its hidden outskirts. The village appeared desolate, its houses sagging under the weight of time and decay. As Alina ventured deeper into the heart of the village, a sense of foreboding settled over her. It was as though the very air held its breath, waiting for something to happen. Ancient symbols adorned the walls, etched in blood-red paint, their meanings lost to all but the coven. Her presence did not go unnoticed for long. The elders, the ancient vampires who ruled the coven with an iron grip, sensed the intruder in their midst. They were the guardians of dark traditions, the keepers of secrets that dated back to a time when humanity was but a fragile flicker of life. The revelation of the vampire coven's existence sent shockwaves through the village. The humans who dwelled there had long lived in uneasy truce with the vampires, abiding by a set of unspoken rules that maintained a fragile balance between the two worlds. But Alina's arrival threatened to disrupt that delicate equilibrium. The villagers, wary of the outsiders who dared to venture into their mist-shrouded domain, watched as Alina uncovered the village's sinister secrets. She stumbled upon a cryptic, blood-filled ritual that took place beneath the pale light of the moon, a ritual that bound the coven to the village and ensured their continued survival. The elders, their eyes as old as time itself, saw in Alina a threat to their way of life. She was an outsider, an interloper in their ancient world, and they could not allow her to reveal their existence to the outside world. In the dead of night, as the fog thickened around the village, the elders made their move. They descended upon Alina with a swiftness that belied their age, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly hunger. Alina, with fear coursing through her veins, fought to escape their grasp, but their strength was beyond mortal comprehension. They spoke of the consequences of disturbing ancient traditions, of the price that must be paid for trespassing on their sacred ground. In a chilling confrontation that spanned the eerie, fog-drenched streets of the village, Alina found herself face to face with the elders. They spoke of the coven's centuries-old pact with the villagers, of the uneasy truce that had allowed both humans and vampires to coexist in a delicate balance. But Alina, with a spirit as fierce as her curiosity, refused to be cowed by their otherworldly presence. She challenged the elders, demanding to know why their existence remained hidden from the world. She questioned the price that the villagers paid in blood for the coven's protection. As the tension reached its peak, the village itself seemed to hold its breath, as though the very earth were waiting for a resolution to the age-old conflict. The elders, with their ancient eyes filled with a deep, unfathomable sorrow, knew that the time had come to make a choice. In the end, they chose to release Alina, to allow her to leave the village and keep their secrets hidden from the world. But they warned her that the consequences of disturbing ancient traditions would not be forgotten, that the village would forever bear the scars of her intrusion. Alina, with the weight of her encounter with the elders heavy upon her, left the village behind. As she disappeared into the mist-shrouded forest, she knew that the clash of human and supernatural worlds was a tale that would be told in hushed tones for generations to come. The village, with its eerie fog and cryptic symbols, would remain a place of mystery and foreboding, where ancient rituals and dark traditions held sway. The coven of reclusive vampires would continue to exist in the shadows, their secrets hidden from the world, their existence known only to those who dared to venture into the heart of the misty village. The Silent Coven was a tale of the clash between the outsider and the insider, a story of the consequences of disturbing ancient traditions, and a glimpse into the blurred lines between the human and supernatural worlds. It was a tale whispered in the darkest corners of Eastern Europe, a tale of the price paid for curiosity and the enduring power of secrets kept hidden from the world. The last night of St. Agnes. St. Agnes Cathedral stood as a silent sentinel in the heart of the city, its ancient stones whispering tales of centuries gone by. Within its hallowed walls, the faithful had sought solace, and the lost had sought redemption. But beneath its serene exterior lay a dark secret, hidden within the labyrinthine catacombs that wound their way beneath the sacred ground. Father Michael, a priest burdened with doubt and struggling to find his faith, had spent years tending to the spiritual needs of his congregation. The weight of their hopes and fears bore down on him, and he often found himself seeking solace in the quiet corridors of the cathedral. One fateful night, as he wandered the dimly lit chambers, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls, Father Michael stumbled upon a hidden entrance in the cathedral's crypt. A cold draft whispered from the darkness below, and an inexplicable curiosity pulled him toward the concealed passage. Descending into the depths of the catacombs, Father Michael found himself in a place that defied reason. Candlelit chambers adorned with religious iconography gave way to narrow, winding corridors, and the scent of ancient stone mingled with the earthy scent of decay. As he ventured further into the labyrinthine catacombs, Father Michael made a chilling discovery. He was not alone in the darkness. In the dim light, he glimpsed the figures of beings that should not exist, vampires, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly hunger. Among them was Alara, a vampire with a haunted past and a desperate longing for redemption. Her existence was a contradiction, a creature of the night yearning for salvation within the sacred confines of the cathedral. Father Michael's discovery sent shockwaves through the foundations of his faith. He had been raised to believe in the sanctity of the church, the unquestionable goodness of the divine. Yet here, beneath the cathedral's holiest of grounds, he found creatures that challenged the very essence of his beliefs. Alara, her voice a haunting melody that echoed through the catacombs, revealed her tragic history. She had been transformed into a vampire against her will, a victim of a relentless thirst for blood. But she had resisted the darkness within her, seeking solace within the cathedral's hallowed halls. As Father Michael listened to Alara's tale, he found himself torn between his duty as a priest and his burgeoning compassion for the vampire before him. She spoke of the complexities of good and evil, the blurred lines between right and wrong, and the longing for redemption that had kept her anchored to the cathedral. But the discovery of the vampires beneath St. Agnes Cathedral had not gone unnoticed. A vengeful vampire hunter, driven by a fanatical desire to eradicate the undead, descended upon the sacred place. He saw the vampires as abominations that defiled the sanctity of the church, and he was determined to cleanse the cathedral of their presence. As the catacombs became a battleground between the priest, the vampire, and the vampire hunter, the cathedral itself seemed to hold its breath. The very walls bore witness to the dramatic showdown between the forces of faith and doubt, redemption and vengeance. Father Michael, torn between his duty to protect the church and his compassion for Alara, faced an impossible choice. He knew that the vampire hunter's fanaticism threatened to bring ruin to the cathedral and all who sought solace within its walls. In a moment of desperate clarity, Father Michael confronted the vampire hunter, seeking to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. He implored the hunter to see the complexity of the situation, the potential for redemption that lay within the vampires. But the hunter, blinded by his single-minded purpose, would not be swayed. The catacombs erupted into chaos as the final, climactic showdown between the priest, the vampire, and the vampire hunter unfolded. In the end, the cathedral itself seemed to intervene, as though the ancient stones bore witness to the struggle and sought to protect the sanctuary that had stood for centuries. The catacombs trembled, and a cascade of falling debris separated the combatants. As the dust settled, Father Michael emerged from the darkness, his faith forever altered by the events that had transpired. Alara, her eyes filled with a profound sadness, had vanished into the shadows, seeking solace in the cathedral's hidden recesses. The cathedral, with its ancient secrets and hidden catacombs, continued to stand as a beacon of hope and redemption for those who sought shelter within its hallowed walls. Father Michael, burdened by the knowledge of the supernatural world that dwelled beneath the surface, continued his journey of faith, forever haunted by the events of that fateful night. The last night of St. Agnes was a tale of faith and doubt, redemption, and the complexities of good and evil. It was a story whispered in the dimly lit chambers of the cathedral, a testament to the enduring power of the sacred and the profound impact of the supernatural on the human soul.